fly ball that's hit hard toward left at the track and wall, and Pedro Pajes spoils the shutout and makes it a 2-1 game. Swing, high fly ball, deep right center field, at the track, at the wall. J.J. Wetherholt ties it up. Welcome home, rookie. Swing and a drive that is fair and headed for the corner. 2-run score. Here comes Walker. Pop's going to hold it. Fermin has doubled home too, and these Cardinals continue to amaze. High fly right center. Victor on the run. He's got it. And the Cardinals have won it. Unbelievable. The 9 lives game. St. Louis steals away game 1. A 4-2 final score.
I felt like once Alec Burleson was able to get that first hit, something weird was going to happen last night. That audio courtesy of Cardinals TV alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. Whether it was the Burley single, the Pajes homer, Wetherholt going back home, hitting the game-tying home run. Fermin, of course, Jose Fermin coming into the game as a replacement for Nolan Gorman. He hits the 2-run double. Then you've got Dustin May with the strong start. And of all people, Ryan Fernandez locking that bad boy down in the middle innings. A full team effort, good defense throughout. Alex, that was a hell of a baseball game yesterday. Cardinals were not only no hit, but perfect gamed for the vast majority of that one. Going up against the Pirates bullpen, they had some really good stuff coming out of that pen. And somehow, some way, they just find ways to win. How long will this continue? I don't know, man. But I said it coming off of the weekend. Those games against Seattle, it's not as though they got completely outplayed by what I believe to be a legitimate World Series contender this season. They just couldn't quite do enough to come out on top. But then you look at it again yesterday, and they did just that on the road at Pittsburgh, which has been a house of horrors for the Cardinals over the last couple of years, man. It has not gone well for them at PNC Park. But last night it did. What did you take away from yet another come-from-behind victory for the Redbirds?
I won't lie. The 6th inning, when they're being perfect gamed, I turned over to hockey because I'm like, well, I think I know how this one's going to go. It's a bullpen game. I think we're all going to be seeing
Ye of little faith.
A game that ends with an L. And I flipped back in the 9th once the rally started, and that's just the takeaway for me with this Cardinals team, man. Like, they have that ability to come up in big moments. Like throughout this season, the narrative of the comeback Cardinals, it feels like it seemingly is happening 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th inning when the other team feels like the game is over. And in years past, the game has been over. The Cardinals have lacked the ability to come back in baseball games. But man, like to just think that you're going up against a closer for Pittsburgh who had given up a total of 1 run so far this season, and they come up and you get back-to-back home runs against Pajes and Wetherholt. Now, the Wetherholt one's not surprising. The Pajes one is. And then they get the lead and then are able to shut it down with their bullpen with Soriano. That, to me, is it's a staple that winning teams need to figure out at some point of how to come back and how to win baseball games late or how to win them when it looks like the game is out of reach. And that is an ability that it feels like this Cardinals team, I don't want to say has mastered, but it feels like they're comfortable in. And when you look at the guys that are coming up with the hits in those scenarios, it's Wetherholt, it's some of these guys that you're not expecting to come through in big moments. That, when I watch it, showcases an ability that this Cardinals team, and why I think there's a little bit more hope that this won't just be a seller of a season. I don't think it's a playoff team. I don't think it's going to sustain all season long, but I can continue to say that, and by June or July, if they keep finding ways to be this cardiac Cardinals, then it's hard for me to deny what they're doing. They've got that clutch factor, which is a massive piece to have in a rebuild.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be easy when you go up against the bullpen arms, right? That's why they go to the pen a lot of times, and they don't like seeing a starter the 3rd time through, because they play the matchup game. And we talked about it. I said, hey, this will be an interesting test for the Cardinals going into that game because it was going to be mixing and matching the whole way for the Pirates bullpen. And they did a pretty good job. Even the bulk innings guy was pretty good for them. What I can't get over is how the Cardinals are doing against relievers so far this year. We looked this up in the office prior to the show today. If you take the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, so most of the time when you're seeing relievers, might get a sprinkle of a starter in there in that 6th inning sample size. The Cardinals have the 5th best OPS in baseball in the later innings at 785. The teams ahead of them, the Chicago Cubs, the New York Yankees, the Atlanta Braves, the LA Dodgers.
A who's who.
Who's who of the contenders.
Man, you're in that category?
It's unbelievable what the lineup's been doing. And then you look at what they do against lefties. They do a very good job against lefties. They've seen, I think it was the 5th most appearances against left-handed pitchers in the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. And it's the 5th fewest amount of right-handers they see in baseball in the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. It's because of that lefty lane that they create as a trap that Oli Marmol has laid out in that lineup, where they go Wetherholt, Herrera, Burley. They're forcing lefties into the game, and the Cardinals are taking advantage of it, and that lane is not working out for the opponent. So it's been amazing to watch what they've been able to do in late innings when teams are supposed to be able to match up and really shut down your lineup. That's actually apparently when the Cardinals seem to thrive, the Cardiac Cardinals.
So here's a question that I would have as a follow-up to that then. Isn't that a reflection on the manager? Wouldn't you say that the guy who has implemented this style of play, who said from day one of spring training, we want to be a pain in the ass to play against. That's got to be who we are. The fact that you've seen this team take their knocks, take their walks. One of the things they're doing really well, Ivan Herrera. In those situations that T-Bone's talking about, go look at the numbers. It's not as though he's hitting for average. He's not hitting for power. He's walking more than 32% of the time when he sees a lefty reliever come into the game in the 6th inning or later. Because he knows they're not here to pitch to me. They came into this game for Victor Scott and J.J. Wetherholt and Alec Burleson. That's their goal, is they want to get those guys out. So they look at me as a guy that they're going to pitch around. And Ivan Herrera has stayed disciplined in those situations, understands what they're trying to do against him, and he's taking his walk and he's trusting the guys behind him to get him in. And I would say that is a reflection of the coaching staff. I would say that the defense that they've been playing this year is a reflection of the coaching staff. I would say them being an absolute nightmare to play for 9, 10, 11, however many innings, whenever they get into these late inning games, that is a reflection of the coaching staff. And I don't know if you guys have seen the same thing. Twitter's not real. The real world is much more than the echo chamber that we see on social media. But one thing that I've noticed lately is a number of people saying something to the effect of, hey, you know, I'm not the biggest Oli Marmol supporter, but I'm kind of coming around this year. I kind of see how this can work with him and a young team. Last night, he was pumped at the end of that game. He's like chest bumping guys afterwards, kind of getting after it. It appeared with some kind of a fan in the stands after the game.
Nice.
I don't know, man. I think there's something brewing here. I don't know how sustainable it is. I don't think this is a playoff team. But do you guys get the sense that people are coming around a little bit on this team being a reflection of the manager who's in charge?
It should. But I can also play the other side of what you said and say the reflection of the manager. It's also a reflection of the players being coachable, because you've had the same manager, and at times it feels like they've been unable to do that. And maybe that's because you've had the veteran presence in the clubhouse that may not have that same message, or may not have the ability to take in that same message that Ollie's trying to do. So I kind of look at it on the other side of the coin too and say, yeah, but you've got players that actually know how to do that and buy into what the manager is offering, because both things have to work if you want it to work and be successful. But with that being said, people should be bought in a little bit more to Oli Marmol. We've talked in the past that even for how bad the teams have been, he's found ways to keep them competitive. Last season's teams was awful, but they still found ways to keep their head above water and at least mirror as a team that could potentially get one of the playoff spots for the longest time. So, yeah, we talked yesterday about how we think he managed that game with Matthew Liberatore on Saturday well. I feel like he knows how to handle his pitching staff. He knows how to handle that bullpen very well. But you've got to have a manager, and we've had these conversations in the past of what's the role of the manager, what's the role of the coach. You've got to have a manager that wants to see an identity, that holds the players accountable to that identity, but gets the players able to buy in and believe that they can perform to that level. So there's two sides of this one, and I think the players mesh very well with Oli, and Oli meshes very well with these players.
And I think that's because the roster can mesh to the way Oli wants to manage, right? I mean, he's able to manage fairly aggressively this year. He's pinch hitting, like he pinch hit for Gorman last night. and he did that well. We've seen him go to O'Brien before the ninth inning at times because he wants to use his quote-unquote closer in the highest leverage situation, which is the way he wants to manage, as we saw in his first year in 2022. So it's a roster that he can manage more to his style and doesn't have limitations because of some of the veteran presence that he had in years past, or where Helsley had to be just the ninth inning. So I think that helps him out. I think some of the fan base is coming around to him. I think part of that is because of the lack of expectations coming into the year, and a lot of us would have thought that they would have been 9-19 like the Phillies and Mets, not a team that was 2 games above 500 at this point. But I think for him to get most of the fan base on board, you're gonna have to wait till the end of the rebuild, right? Because there's still gonna be plenty of people to say he hasn't won anything, right? I know Lisa's not a fan. It's gonna take winning in October, because that's how you define Cardinals baseball. It isn't about the success of the 6 months of the regular season. It's by what happens in October, because that's what it means to be Cardinals baseball.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. From the 314, this show, and you guys were at the head of the line telling everybody how bad Ollie Marmol was and how he's going nowhere and he should be fired. Now suddenly he's the right guy for the job.
I think you got the wrong show.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like
we've been pretty positive.
I wanted
on
to extend Ollie in the offseason.
I think all of us did. I think we've all been.
BK would say for a moment that they could wait, and then he decided, lame duck manager not, and then he got on board.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah.
He was more concerned about extending others.
Well, my whole thing was I didn't think you had to do it. I thought it was okay if you decided not to and you played this thing out. But I had no issue with them doing it. It was one of those where, like, honestly, I just didn't care either way what they decided to do there. I thought the stakes were incredibly low on that.
He's got the extension.
I think sometimes people just assume that all the stations on 101 or all the shows on 101 have the same opinions. Guys, not even all of us on this show have the same opinions. What? Like, Alex will believe one thing and I will believe something different. And that's the way it works. Like, you at your place of employment probably have very different opinions on things than your coworkers. That's how it works here. All of us view things very differently. And I can assure you, no, we have not been talking about Ollie in that particular way.
I also think certain listeners just hate us, and so anytime we say something and agree with, they're like, "Oh, you didn't say, you were the other side of that," and we don't have receipts on.
To be fair, that's also understandable if they do hate us. That part I totally get.
If you're listening or if you hate listening, at least you're listening. That's all we care about.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. If you guys want to check us out on YouTube, you can do so at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. Coming up in about 15 minutes, how would you feel if this is the offseason for the St. Louis Blues? I'm going to guess not so great. We'll get into that coming up in about 15 minutes. But next, the Cardinals offense is certainly outperforming all expectations. What's led to this? We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So this Cardinals offense, guys, it's not perfect. It's got its flaws. It's pretty decent, though. It's a hell of a lot better than I expected it to be. I thought coming into the season, the Cardinals offense was the part of the team that had the widest range of outcomes. I could see them being a special brand of bad. I could see them being a little better than we all expected. If you got, some surprisingly good contributions from like Jordan Walker or Nolan Gorman or somebody else emerged. Thomas Ajacey finally became the player that he was supposed to be. I mean, there were players that you could point to and be like, all right, it could be better than you expect. But you didn't know for sure if any of those things were going to actually happen coming into the season. And then you look at some of the numbers, and it's like, all right, well, Alec Burleson has a 730 OPS. Ivan Herrera is at just over 800, but a lot of that is carried by the fact that he's walking seemingly every other at-bat. Gorman hasn't hit for any power just yet. Wynn's been fine. He's like a little above league average offensively so far this year. What has been your guys' impression so far about the Cardinals' offense?
One, that it's outperformed my expectations. I didn't think there was a wide range of outcomes. I thought this offense was going to be bad. I thought the way they were scoring runs was with singles and stolen bases. I didn't think there was any power. We joked about it with Derrick Goold at the beginning of the season. We don't know who's going to generate power. And now Wetherholt's got power. Walker's got power that I don't think people thought was going to be there. Nathan Church has power for you. Like, there's guys that I didn't expect to provide that ability.
Here's a follow-up question. Do you guys know where the Cardinals rank in home runs this season?
No, I do, because I just looked this up for what I was going to mention.
I'll say top 10.
They are 8th.
Yeah.
8th in Major League Baseball in home runs. The only teams ahead of them are the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Braves, the Angels, the Cubs, the Cincinnati Reds, and the Houston Astros.
I would have never believed that was going to be possible for this team to be at that point.
Agreed.
Yeah.
The one way that you could have convinced me on it is Gorman became what we all thought was in there.
And he's been the guy that was
But even then, though, I didn't think there was going to be a whole lot of home run hitters other than Gorman. Like, I didn't think Herrera was going to provide that pop for you. I thought it would be there, but not consistent. Burleson, I just didn't know about. I mean, you're talking about 4 guys right now that has the chance to hit a home run for you.
Walker and Wetherholt have really changed the outlook for the offense. Do you guys know who's 3rd on the team in home runs this year?
Church.
Yeah.
5th. I think he's got 5 home runs.
Nathan Bleepin Church has 5 home runs.
Yeah.
T-Bone, eat it. Eat it, brother.
Hey, how's your JC boy doing?
Eat it.
How's
Don't
your
worry about it. I've got my
Oh, he wanted to JC in the minors, remember?
I didn't say I wanted him in the minors, but I thought it was at least in
wanted
play.
Jose for me on the big league roster.
I would always say JC couldn't play with Church, by the way, so I was 1 for 2.
I still played.
Yeah.
He played last night, didn't he?
He's out there.
What? Oh, who?
So JC.
Yeah, but he didn't do anything in that game.
No, he had a couple of aggressive at-bats. I will say the thing about the offense, too, why I think they're having such a outperforming season, dude, they're what's the word I'm looking for?
You're going to get this.
I'm going to get
this. It's going to be a great point.
Their patience. There it is. Patience. Nope. It wasn't even a C word. It wasn't even a C word. Their patience at the plate, forcing pitchers to have to pitch to them, is why they're actually able to do damage. Like, with the exception of a couple of guys, I don't see a swing heavy type of player that is forcing guys or making the pitchers kind of pitch to the outside and making them make mistakes. Man, they're making them go inside and pitch in the zone, and then the Cardinals do their damage.
Yeah, Walker's the one that's kind of starting to fall into that, which we've talked about him. But he's the X factor to him, and Wetherholt, as BK had mentioned, are the X factors that can potentially keep this team afloat when it comes to the slugging percentage and being top 10 in home runs. Because slugging percentage, they're 13th. And that's being carried by their home runs because, as we talked about, I don't remember if it was on the show or on the Record Report, they kind of blend together for me. They're not hitting for doubles right now, right? They haven't been hitting for a ton of doubles. They've just recently started to kind of pick that up a little bit, but that will start to come for them because they are more of a doubles hitting team, in my opinion, than they are a home run hitting team. And if they start to uplift those doubles as the home run numbers start to slightly fall, they should be kind of around 15-ish for their slugging percentage, which isn't great. But for this lineup that I said on opening day was going to have the worst slugging percentage in baseball, that is beyond my expectations coming into the year. And that's being driven by the fact that Walker's looked good. Wetherholt's had a little bit more pop in his bat than what I was expecting early on this year. And then Church has come out of nowhere to be a guy that's 3rd on the team in home runs.
Just been really impressed by the development of some of these young guys. Nathan Church is showing he at least belongs in the major leagues. What is the ultimate upside? Is he a long-term fourth outfielder? That's still very possible. But he's a good defender. We knew that. He's got a cannon of an arm. He's super athletic, and now he's hitting for power. All right, cool. That's a profile that I can be interested in, especially as a left-handed outfielder. J.J. Wetherholt just does awesome stuff offensively every night. Like, whether it's just taking a big walk or putting the ball in play or hitting a home run like he did last night, this guy's just awesome. Like, I am really impressed by what we have seen by him so far this season. He is now on pace for 35 home runs this year and 127 runs. Alex.
It's pretty good.
What? Like, what? I know that we had been sold on him as a really good player, but I undersold it. I didn't think he was going to be capable of this quickly at the big league level. He's not hitting for doubles yet either. And that's to T-Bone's point. Like, I still think there is some untapped potential in here for JJ and for this offense overall. I think Herrera is going to eventually hit his stride. I think Burley's going to eventually hit his stride. I do think there's still some more doubles power in there for JJ Wetherholt. I think Mason Wynn is eventually going to start hitting more of those line drives as well. Like, man, I know Walker's probably going to fall back down to earth. It is what it is. It was always coming. It's a matter of how he now responds to this. But I'm pretty encouraged and optimistic about what the outlook of this offense could be. I think they could be a middle of the pack kind of offense. And for this team, given what the expectations were, that's a huge win relative to what we thought coming into the season.
This is before reinforcements come too, by the way, right? Like, Nootbaar is going to be back in, a month or so. And then they're kind of it's the old line everybody hated, but they're like a trade post-deadline when you potentially bring up someone like a Baez, or if you bring up a Jimmy Crooks, or if you believe in what Blaze Jordan's doing down there. Like, there's more pieces that are going to be added to this already surprising lineup that maybe it will add to the upside of it. You know, the guys that are down in the minor leagues, it's kind of a unknown. Like, Baez could come up here, be awesome, could come up here and really struggle in his first turn. It wouldn't be the first rookie to have that happen. But Nootbaar for sure is a guy that you're hoping is going to bounce back and be at least another league average bat that you're adding to this lineup. And if you do that, now you're looking at 8 of your 9 guys as league average or above, potentially?
Imagine if you replaced, I'm sorry, man, but it is what it is. Imagine if you replace Victor Scott's production with Lars Nootbaar, who's like 10% above league average.
Huge upgrade.
It changes everything about the bottom of this order. And now think about those situations. Like, let's say they're just going to bring along Lars Nootbaar slowly, and they put him at the very bottom of the order. I don't know how likely that is, but let's operate under that assumption.
Off.
Exactly.
High on base.
Lefty.
Oh, I love it.
Imagine instead of coming up regularly with an out and nobody on, JJ Wetherholt is now coming into those scenarios with a guy on first, and he's hitting to potentially move him over and like maybe even hit him over to third. Like, that's the kind of thing that really changes the outlook of the offense. And now suddenly they're not going to be walking Ivan Herrera in those situations. You got first and third, nobody out. Ivan Herrera coming up to the plate, potentially a lefty reliever in the game because they brought him in for Newt and JJ Wetherholt. Now that guy has to face Ivan Herrera. Good luck, man. That's where the damage starts to come into play. And boom, now we're off to the races. So it's a lot of fun to watch, man. I'm really enjoying watching this baseball club, and that's not something I think any of us expected coming into the season. Can we cut Pedro Pages some slack, by the way?
I thought you were just going to say, can we cut Pedro? I'm like, damn, man, he hit a home run last night.
That's one of those guys we were talking about above league average.
He's been better defensively lately. I would say he's finally figuring out how to do the automatic ball strike system. It was a struggle early on. And now you look at his offensive numbers. He's batting .255. He's got an OPS over 750. He's 15% above league average, and he's a solid contributor once again. Is this guy great? No, he's probably never going to be, but he's a capable major league catcher. If you have this guy catching for you 3 or 4 days a week, you're fine. He is the least of their concerns right now. They've got much bigger issues than Pedro Pages being a part of the major league roster. I know everybody wants to see Jimmy Crooks, and once he stops swinging and missing 45% of the time, I think you'll probably see Jimmy Crooks eventually. But right now, I have no reason to believe that Jimmy Crooks would come up to the big league roster and would be better for you than what Pedro Pages has been this season.
You saw Jimmy Crooks last year, and I know it was a small sample size, but it wasn't that great. So I'm with you. Cut him some slack. He's a backup catcher. So
sure.
Like, he's going to provide you some pop at times. He's going to go through slumps at times. I don't think people will cut him some slack as long as Jimmy Crooks continues to dominate in AAA.
Jimmy Crooks is not dominating in AAA, though. He has 32 strikeouts in 90 or 74 at bats.
What's his batting average, Brandon?
And what's his
270?
What's his power?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Power's real.
That's
Okay.
what. That's
Is
what
that
only
going to
people care about.
translate?
That's
Is
what
that going to translate to the major league level when you are striking out one out about 40% of the time
You're
right now?
a level-headed individual.
AAA.
I don't think that will matter to people if Jimmy Crooks continues to showcase power.
It will matter, though, once he gets up here,
And
and
then
people
I'll
will say they
criticize
and then
ruined
we'll
him.
say send him back down and bring up highs.
Yeah, come on, you know the cycle.
Yeah, I don't understand
Don't
why
act
this
like you don't know
surprises
this.
you. What makes you think anybody is level-headed with
The
this?
guy has 32 strikeouts and 74 at
That's
bats.
fine. Nolan Gorman's still on the team, man.
Yeah. Yeah, he could just be our next Nolan
Also, they
Gorman.
just cut down on strikeouts with guys at the big league level. Look at Walker. Look at Gorman.
Hey,
it's
Frank
fine.
Brown can fix Jordan Walker. He sure as hell can fix Jimmy Crooks.
Derrick Goold joining us in the 12 o'clock hour. In 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line to get your questions in. But next, how would you feel about this offseason for the St. Louis Blues? Alex, I'm going to guess the answer is not so great. We'll tell you about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals come back to win last night over the Pittsburgh Pirates as they score 4 runs in the top of the ninth as they take game 1 of the 4-game set 4-2. Game 2 will be tonight. 5:40 will be first pitch. Kyle Leahy will be on the mound for St. Louis. Another Major League Baseball news, the Philadelphia Phillies announced that they have fired Rob Thompson as their manager earlier this morning, appointing Don Mattingly as their interim coach. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
So Jeremy Rutherford has a new piece up over on The Athletic, Alex.
Yeah, love JR stuff.
Ahead of a massive 2 months for St. Louis, 10 offseason predictions.
Oh, baby, there's going to be some gold in this one.
Oh, give me Jason Robertson.
Oh man. He's washed up.
Just going to go through these one by one. You should read the full
Nick.
article. It's over at The Athletic. Be sure to subscribe if you have not done so just yet. We'll talk to JR about this coming up at 1 o'clock. His predictions are as follows. Thomas and Parayko stay put.
Okay.
The Blues decide not to sell low on Jordan Kyrou. There is no deal made for Brady Tkachuk.
No deal for Matthew either.
Correct. Binnington's back. Holloway signs a 6-year contract extension. The Blues retain and make all 3 of their first-round picks. Carbonneau makes the club out of camp. Jiricek comes to North America, plays with the Blues, except he's sent down to the AHL.
He's already in North America, man. He's just in Canada.
Yeah.
And
Canada, North America.
Steen officially hires Stastny and Bortuzzo as his lieutenants. So in other words, no real outside additions other than the guys that are already in your system.
So let's run it back, big boy.
How do you think Blues fans would feel about that kind of an offseason,
Not
Alex?
good at all. I think Blues fans would be upset if they run it back with the exact same roster. I believe, especially if there's moves made around the National Hockey League, which there always are. There's going to be teams that make trades. I'm not going to be 1 ounce of upset in free agency when they don't make any signings because this free agency class is bad. But if you're telling me that this same roster comes back next year and maybe upgrades of Carbonneau and Jiricek are on the roster, which I got to be fully honest, if this team is back, no changes are made, I don't think Carbonneau or Jiricek are on this roster. I think both are probably playing in the American Hockey League to start the season out. I believe Blues fans would be very disappointed in Alex Steen and Doug Armstrong.
This feels like my worst case scenario offseason for the Blues. And I fear it's the one that they're going to choose to go down. And because I just think they have to start making changes. And it probably really just circles on Kyrou, for example. And we've had this conversation a lot. And this is what I had mentioned when we talked about this last week. I fear teams are going to lowball Doug Armstrong, as they should on Kyrou, because they should point to it and say, the guy wasn't even a 20-goal scorer, and he just had a knee operation. Why am I paying for a guy that was a 35-plus goal scorer when he didn't do that last year? And I fear that the Blues are just going to hold on to that guy, and then they're not going to be able to make many changes, right? And I don't think they're moving on from Booch, not because they don't want to, because I just don't know if anybody's taking that contract at this point. I don't think you can run this back. I think the problem you're seeing with the Blues is they feel like they're going to be too stagnant, right? Just continue to cycle it back with the same core, which has disappointed 3 of the last 4 years, while also trying to bring in some youth movement. And I kind of agree with Alex. If Kyrou's here, how's Carbonneau here? You know, I think it gets a little bit tougher to see the path for him on this roster. So I think they have to make moves this offseason. I think it starts with that core.
If you do this offseason where you run it back, you're not picking a path. You're not picking a path that you've said you're trying to decide on. You're basically saying we're going to kick the can down the road for 1 more year and decide which direction we're going to go. Because picking a path, and I said this a lot during the post games this season, and I said it with you guys on this show, to me, you're at a crossroads to where you've got to make one of 2 decisions. You either go into youth movement where you go after younger pieces that fit in the same age frame of the 21, 22, 23, 24-year-old, or you make an aggressive move to try and get you a piece that at least pushes you in the other direction. But if you just go straight down that path still and say, no, we're going to run it back, Kyrou can't be that bad next year, nor can Pavel Buchnevich, our goaltending will be better at the start of the year, our defense is going to improve, I think you're going to be in for a bad October and November.
Okay.
Here's BK telling you why this would be an A-plus offseason.
It would not be an A-plus offseason, but I think it would be an understandable offseason given their current situation. So let me go through some of these things individually. First, let's start out with Kyrou. T-Bone, you know I disagree with the stance. If you're getting lowballed on Kyrou, you shouldn't trade him. You should bring him back and allow him the opportunity to be a part of your top 9, probably your top 6, and hopefully it gets back on track for him. Now, that doesn't mean it will, but basically up until last season, he was a consistent 30-plus goal scorer, 70-plus point producer. That is a guy most teams would want. But he was not that player last year, and I do think there's at least a possibility that it was affected due to his injury that he's now had some kind of a surgery on. So if you don't get any kind of legitimate offers for Kyrou, you shouldn't just sell low on a talent just because that's what's available for you. You don't have to do that right now. You have him contractually or under contract for a number of years still to where you can run this thing back with him next year and then reassess where you're at. Same thing that I said previously about Robert Thomas. That one worked out all right. That does not mean this will work out well for you. The other thing, Carbonneau. You can find a spot for him in this lineup. What, I'm like taking out Jonathan Berggren? Okay. So I take out Berggren. This was a guy that was placed on waivers. The Blues got him for nothing this year during the regular season. Yeah, so that guy either is my extra forward or he bumps down. Fine. That probably means Otto Stenberg's not in your top 9. All right. Then Otto Stenberg starts out the season on the 4th line for me. And when there are injuries, which there will be at some point in time, then he bumps up into the lineup the way that they used to do with a guy like Barbashev. So, like, okay, cool. Carbonneau can be in this lineup. So can Stenberg. So can all the other guys that were already here. You said pick a path. This would be picking a certain kind of path. The Blues are already a pretty young team. They don't have a bunch of older veterans on this roster right now outside of basically Parayko, Booch, and Binnington. Well, Binnington's only under contract for 1 more year. There's no real incentive to get rid of him right now unless you get a legitimate offer for him. And in this scenario, I'm guessing they didn't. You don't have to move Colton Parayko right now, and he might not want to move. And you can't move Pavel Buchnevich. So of the guys that you could actually move, your path was we're going to build around the 26 and under crowd, which is a young team, right? Like you look across the NHL, you're already one of the youngest teams in the league. So this would be you choosing the path of let's run it back. Let's see what we get out of these young guys. And then we will choose who we're truly building around. Honestly, in a lot of ways, it's what the Cardinals did last year. So they could then choose their path this offseason. It set them up to determine, can we actually build around these guys or no? The Cardinals decided, no, we cannot. Let's go a different path. Now we're going the youth movement and rebuild path. The Blues might end up there too. But right now, they don't have to end up there. So they're choosing the path of, let's see where we're at first.
See, I would say that the Blues don't need another year to determine that. I think they got their answer this year. This core doesn't work.
It's been three straight years where you've been under 500 from October to December.
For 3 of the last 4 years. Yeah. And they got hot, and it was a 20-game stretch 2 years ago.
Which core failed? Because I would say that a lot of that was on like the previous iteration of what the Blues were.
The core that failed was Thomas, Kyrou, and Buchnevich. That's what failed.
I think Booch has definitely failed. I'm not sure that I'm willing to say that on Thomas, who last year was awesome in the second half.
But he wasn't in the first half.
Sure, but he was also hurt.
But what Doug Armstrong had said, yes, you're right. And
injuries matter, man. We can't just ignore the fact that when he's been healthy, he's been more than a point per game player, one of the best producers in the NHL as a legit number 1 or number 2 center, depending on how you want to look at him.
But when games didn't matter. And that's what Doug Armstrong talked about. In the last 2 seasons when he's gone on that tear, the games have not been pressure-filled.
It didn't matter like 2 years ago because they ended up in the postseason.
Sure, but to start that off, they were a team that wasn't believed in, and that's where he went on that torrid pace.
Understood, but then once they were, he also continued to go on this crazy stretch.
That's fine, but the president of hockey operations doesn't put any value in what they did. Not any value. He puts some value, but not the value that's like, oh, well, this is successful.
He's not the president of hockey operations anymore. He's not the guy making the decisions.
You don't think the guy that's been working next to him hand in hand for the last 3 years doesn't have at least somewhat of the same mindset he does?
Maybe, but I don't know how he feels about Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. Those two specifically, because that's really the
I'm
conversation
okay if
we're
you want to
having.
say we're hanging on to Thomas.
Robert
Like that
Thomas
one I
is
get.
not the argument, but you asked, what core failed? The core was Thomas, Kyrou, and Buchnevich for the last 3 years.
What are you doing with Buch? What's the plan?
Buch, I'm admitting I'm stuck with. So what I'm saying is my path to make a change is Kyrou.
Give me 1 second here, though. If Buch, we're agreeing, you can't move him, right? Nobody's taking that on?
Yeah.
You agree, Alex? Mm-hmm. Thomas, you don't want to move, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
So we're talking about Kyrou.
Yeah.
That's it. That's ultimately what this conversation is. Because when we say this core, like, it becomes this bigger thing. We're talking about one player. We're talking about what the plan is with Jordan Kyrou. Let's be specific here. And for Kyrou, it's been one bad year. That's it. Before that, he was a successful and productive NHL player that is underpaid relative to what he's producing for you. So you have to determine this offseason, was that about the injury? Was it about him not having a center that can get the most out of him? Are those excuses, or are they explanations for why he did not produce this year? And if you're being lowballed in the offers for Jordan Kyrou, does it make sense for us to just say, you know what? We need to wash our hands of this. It's going to get worse before it gets better there. Or does it make more sense to see if he can come back next year with potentially more talent around him and healthier, and we are able to get more out of Jordan Kyrou, which then means either, one, he reemerges as a core player for the Blues, or two, he gains more value for you to trade him either at next year's deadline or in next offseason. Because if that's the case, it doesn't make sense to trade him when his value is as low as it has ever been at the NHL level. So that's my argument here is, you can't just trade a guy just because everybody's mad at him. But you trade a guy to extract value from him. And right now, my personal opinion, maybe the NHL feels differently, but my personal belief here is you're going to get no value for Jordan Kyrou given the player that he had been prior to one bad season.
That's fine, but you're living in this world where the only trade asset you have is Jordan Kyrou, and it's not. You've got 3 first-round picks that can be attached to Jordan Kyrou. You've got a pipeline that was ranked 10th best in the National Hockey League with 12 defensemen in your minor league system. You've got a ton of wingers that we just mentioned. Where are they all playing? You've got assets.
But you've got the opportunities to play these guys in the lineup. Like, who are these wingers that we're trying to get in the lineup over Kyrou?
It's not about the opportunities to play. It's about you've given the opportunity to do something for 3 years and you haven't gotten it done.
But he did for 2, and then he had a bad season.
You can say he was a successful hockey player. He was a successful hockey player. He wasn't a winning hockey player.
He was, though. The Blues did a lot of winning with him in the lineup 2 years ago.
He did a lot of winning in a 2-month stretch.
And they had terrible goaltending prior to that, and they had a bad coach the year before that.
And you're talking about last year too, right? Like this year, he wasn't a part of the production that won in the last 2 months.
This year, in 2026, he was bad. I'm not disagreeing with anybody there. I couldn't. There's nothing that I can point to say, like, this was a good season for Jordan Kyrou. I can't. I concede that argument on the face. But for the last 2 years before then, yeah, no, I will fight tooth and nail that Kyrou was a productive NHL level player, the likes of which are really hard to find. How many times have we talked about finding a 30-goal scorer for the Blues, a 70-plus point producer, and this idea that you're just going to give up on one and get rid of him because you no longer want him around and you'll take whatever anybody else is willing to offer you? That's crazy to me. Now, if you can upgrade from Kyrou, if you're telling me, hey, we're going to use him in a package deal to go get Brady Tkachuk or Jason Robertson or something like that, you know I'm all in favor of those kinds of moves. I don't think that's out there for you right now. My guess is you're going to get lowballed on Kyrou to where somebody else is saying, we'll give you a first-round pick for him. I don't want a first-round pick for Kyrou. I don't want some random mid-level prospect for Jordan Kyrou. That makes no sense for the St. Louis Blues in my estimation.
I don't think you're going to get lowballed for Kyrou. I think people are realistic.
Why would anybody give you his full max value right now?
Because of what you're trying to tell us what Jordan Kyrou is. Other teams see that too.
They saw what he was last year, though.
He
was coming off of an injury, and if they're going to lowball you, I'm not selling him.
They're going to try and lowball it. But at some point, if a team needs an upgrade offensively, they look at it the same way you're looking at it of, well, let's take a chance on it.
But why? Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they
we
just
don't
say,
have goal scoring?
I am open to trading Kyrou, and because I think you have to change this core. If I'm another GM, I'm not caving on Army and Steen's asking price. I'm just not, because I'm going to point to it and I'm going to say he wasn't a 30-goal scorer. And even if you want to use the knee as a explanation for it, I think those teams are going to look at that and go, he wasn't compromised for the whole year. And even if he was, he should have been a 20-goal scorer. He's too talented not to have been a 20-goal scorer, even if the knee was a problem. So if I'm another GM, yeah, you're not getting anything of value for him. Now, the Blues could use him to try and upgrade, like you're saying, like you trade him and add a first-round pick.
And I'm cool with that, by the way. I'm in. Like that is not something I will argue with you on.
If you're just selling him to sell him, which I'm still open to even admitting, like, you know what, maybe I have to accept less. If I'm another GM, you're not getting what I think you thought you were getting 2 years ago, because there's just why would they? Why would they cave?
I'm cool with you moving Jordan Kyrou. I'm not cool with you moving Jordan Kyrou for pennies on the dollar. That to me makes no sense. And so maybe that's what we're really having here, Alex, is a discussion on how will other teams value Jordan Kyrou. If they're lowballing you for him, you don't just move him for the sake of making a change.
We're all in agreement in that one. I'm not sitting here saying I'm trading him for a second-round pick just to get him off my team.
So what is your
What I'm saying is
this
it's not a this is the only option of, well, you only have to trade Jordan Kyrou as a low ball offer. There is an option to put pieces with Jordan Kyrou and still upgrade your team. I don't think people
if that's
view
not out there.
Well, then yeah, you run it back with him.
See, I'm still trading him. I don't think you're getting a second-round pick.
That's what I'm arguing against. That to me is not the offseason that the Blues should be looking to do. They are not just changing for change's sake.
See, I think they're too stagnant as an organization. I think at some point as an organization, sometimes you do have to do change for change's sake, even if it's not at the value you want. I mean, I think you see this across sports all the time. Like,
Anaheim did it.
It's
Anaheim
a different sport. The Phillies are a team that's doing this, where they were just too stagnant for too long, and now they're falling apart. You know, now the Mets got a little aggressive, and it failed. So if you want to point to them, I guess that's fair. But Anaheim, to your point, Anaheim made a trade where they traded Zegras. They sold low on Zegras. They're in the freaking playoffs. They needed change for change's sake.
And sometimes it works for teams. The LA Kings traded Pierre-Luc Dubois because they wanted to get rid of it. It didn't work for them. It worked for the Capitals. Luc Dubois was a good player for them. Sometimes teams just view it as, we've got to get the player off of the team. And I can see that scenario. I don't put any stock into that just for my purpose, because I somewhat agree with BK on that to where it's like, look, if I got to bring it back and hope that he has a better turnaround, then I might have to, because trading Jordan Kyrou for a second or a third-round pick is just plain dumb.
And I don't think you're going that low. Like, I'm thinking first-round pick would be the year low.
But see, I don't look at it as just, well, you can only trade Jordan Kyrou. Like, yeah, the option may not be out there. If you sweeten the pot enough, I think you could find another guy that needs a change of scenery from another team, like Jordan Kyrou does, and I think it can get the trade done. You've got 3 first-round picks. I guess that's the other area that I disagree with. I don't think this team makes 3 first-round picks. You've got 3 first-round picks to the point that you've already accumulated the assets for the last 5 seasons. It's now kind of the ish or get off the pot situation, to where you don't need to bring in 3 more guys at the 15th overall pick that aren't going to help you in 4 years.
Agreed, but there's just got to be a team that you can dance with. Like, you can't just say, hey, Team X, you're giving me this player that I want.
No,
they have to be willing to do it, and I don't know who that player is. Coming up in about 10 minutes, we're going to talk to Derrick Goold, Cardinals insider for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. We talk to him each and every Tuesday on BK and Ferrario. We will do that coming up at 12 o'clock. But next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. Derrick Goold will join us in a little more than 5 minutes. We went super long on that discussion of the St. Louis Blues. I think it was worthwhile, though. Alex, you good?
I'm fine.
I'm good, too.
T-Bone,
you good?
Think we're not?
I'm good.
Text line's good.
Well, no,
got a few
not.
people that are a little
YouTube
upset.
chat's getting a little freaking fired up right now.
Is it because BK wants to keep Cairo, or who are they mad at?
People get really mad about the Kyrou stuff. And I think a lot of people are in T-Bone's boat where they're just ready for change. Yeah. And I understand that. It has not been a lot of fun to watch over the past few seasons. All right, let's get to these from the text line. From the 314, Alex, should the Blues try to get Mishkov?
I wouldn't. I mean, maybe you can. That might be one of the scenarios where you go a Kyrou for a Michkov, but man, you're taking a risk on that because Michkov he's really gifted offensively. He has zero defensive talent, and there's a reason that he was scratched in that playoff game.
So it's a Kyrou for a Kyrou.
Kind of. But, I mean, the upside, we've talked about it. The upside is one of the best offensive Russian players right now, so I wouldn't do it, no.
I'd do it. From the manager, Lou Brown, will Carlos Mendoza be fired eventually by the Mets? I think so.
Yeah. I can't believe he wasn't fired yesterday because they had the day off along with the Phillies, and the Phillies made the call. I'm shocked that they didn't fire him yesterday.
From Cottoville Comb Over, does Kyrou and 2 first get you Brady Tkachuk?
No.
I don't think so either.
No. You got to have another position player in that, and I think Neighbors would have to be a part of it. The more I think about it, Kyrou, Neighbors, and either your first-round pick or Detroit's first-round pick is probably close to the finish line with a little bit more of a pot sweetener at the end.
From the 618, do you guys think there will be any legit free agents that the Blues could go after this offseason?
God, please no.
It's a bad
It's
class.
terrible. There's going to be some two-way contracts that are probably signed. They'll bring in some depth pieces that could play in the American Hockey League, but just billboard for everyone, stay the bleep away from these free agents.
This market is kind of what you have, and you have to overpay to go get it.
From the 636, if Hunter Dobbins makes a good start in Pittsburgh, do you think he stays in and Leahy goes to the bullpen? That is something I want to ask Derrick about. I don't know the answer to that. I would go ahead and make the switch. I'm guessing the Cardinals will not. But that's just a difference in what I would do versus what they are likely to do. But I am interested in hearing Derrick's thoughts on that for sure.
Yeah, I would think that they wouldn't, and it's twofold. One, I think they want to run it back with Leahy. I think they want to see if they can fix him in the rotation like they've been able to work with Dustin May. And then I think the second thing is they don't want to send him to the bullpen because then you're down 5 starters to where you don't have anybody in the minors that are ready to go. So if they're going to kick him out of the rotation, I think they'd almost have to send him down to Memphis. All
right, last thing here from the Beer Cat Fan Club Vice President.
It's too long of a name.
When will the Cardinals extend Wetherholt, and for how much and for how long?
Oh, goody.
Go ahead and text Heimbloom right now and ask him what the exact answer to all of that is.
Sure, he'll get back to you very quickly.
Yeah. I know Jim Bowden had his piece yesterday on the young players that he thinks could potentially be in line for extensions. He had the approximate market value for JJ at 8 years, $135 million. We had a full conversation on this yesterday. Recommend checking that out on the podcast page if you missed it. I would not do that right now if I was the St. Louis Cardinals. If he's willing to listen on like 8 years, $80 million, all right, we can talk. 8 years, $135, $140 million, not interested from the Cardinals' perspective. My guess, and why you probably haven't seen anything announced just yet, the player's probably on one side, the team's probably on the other side. The likelihood is they eventually meet somewhere in the middle if anything were to get done. That's kind of the way these things tend to go. Coming up in 15 minutes, we will talk a little bit more about J.J. Wetherholt. He's keeping some pretty rare company with the way that he has begun his major league career. We'll get into that in 15 minutes. Derrick Goold, Cardinals beat writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, joins us next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK. It's time for you to unlock your inner champion, and the place for you to do so is at Victory Men's Health. Check them out today online at victorymenshealth.com. They have a ton of different services to offer, whether it's low testosterone symptoms that you've been dealing with or weight loss goals that you're trying to meet. Maybe you just like to learn more about the red light therapy programs or the cardiovascular testing. All of that is available for you today at Victory Men's Health, and you can check them out online at victorymenshealth.com. That is where you'll book your first appointment the way that I did, victorymenshealth.com. You can get started. That initial visit will include a consultation with a licensed medical provider. They'll give you comprehensive lab work. That helped me out a ton. They were able to find out where all of my different levels were at, and then they were able to personalize a plan for me. They can do the same thing for you. They will unlock your inner champion at Victory Men's Health, and book that first appointment online today at victorymenshealth.com. They have 4 great locations across the St. Louis area. For me, they unlocked my inner champion. They can do the same thing for you. It's all at Victory Men's Health and online at victorymenshealth.com. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We are happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, Cardinals beat writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. He's Derrick Goold, joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario. Derrick, fun baseball game last night broke out in Pittsburgh. How you doing today, man?
Yeah, fun for all the folks that don't have to completely rewrite a game story in the funnel. And, yeah, that was a joy. It was interesting.
I've sat next to JR when he's had to do that for a Blues game, Derrick, and I've seen that man want to chuck a laptop off of the press box, so I feel your pain.
Yeah, I guess I've been around the block long enough, and I had that wonderful experience in 2005 down in Houston where Albert Pujols completely flipped the game on its head, and so it doesn't get any, crazier than that as we have to scrap all of our stories, and we have 7 minutes to deadline, so it was kind of the Bernie Miklasz, late Brian Burwell, Joe Strauss, myself. I mean, it doesn't get crazier than that. Once you go through that, I'll come back in the 9th inning at PNC Park seems kind of routine.
It was a lot of fun to watch, though. And Derrick, let's start with the beginning. There were a dozen different things that we could get into. I know you guys had a piece today on the 5 other storylines that kind of came out of that game. Let's start with Dustin May, who had a really nice start last night. 6 innings once again, gave up only the 2 earned runs. He's really settled in over his last few starts for the Cardinals. For you, what has allowed for that? What's changed in your estimation from what we saw in the first couple of starts with the Cardinals?
Yeah, it's interesting because what he did last night is not necessarily what's made him good in some of the other starts. When he gets ahead, he's able to access more things, and he has the power and the stuff to kind of then put away hitters. And we saw some of that in 2 of his other quality starts. Last night, breaking ball wasn't there. He was behind in the count some. And so he kind of had to go, all right, well, what do I got? And he got a lot of meek contact. He could kind of challenge the Pirates and say, you're not going to get much against me, and I'll trust the defense. And the defense really came through for him. I think it was a really interesting, kind of adjustment to work with what he had. He was not thrilled with kind of his stuff. He had obviously some of the profiles of the pitches, but just wasn't landing them as consistently as he wanted to. And that meant that he just couldn't put away hitters. So he found another way. And, that's sort of been, he's putting complete starts together, if that makes sense. I think there's still probably an element of he hasn't pitched healthy in so long, the big stage, all of that. He compliment going that I think he's working through that as well. We haven't seen him at his best. We've seen bursts of it. Last night was mostly at his most resourceful.
So since his ability to kind of flip what he did in the first couple of starts, Derrick, to what he's been in these last few of how much better he looks, should that give Cardinals fans a little bit more optimism of Kyle Leahy moving forward as a starter, or are they in different categories?
Well, I mean, Dustin May's been a starter before, so this is not new. He hasn't been a full, healthy starter in a while, but he's been an accomplished starter. Leahy, when he was in the minors and starting, he was struggling as a starter, which led to him moving to the bullpen. So the different categories, one is learning the role and doing so at the highest level, whereas May is trying to return to what he had at his best and learning what it's like to be at his healthiest. So look, different categories, and different style of pitchers too. They do both have an extensive mix of pitches. So if you want to look at it that way, yeah, and they have more things that they can go to. Leahy's trying to figure out what order in which to use them, how to get them all going, how to be more efficient. I mean, just everything. Dustin May, I can give you an example. Dustin May has his between start routine down to a science. Kyle Leahy's still figuring his out. Like, he's trying what Dustin May does. He's trying what McGreevy does. All of this is new for him.
We will see Kyle Leahy on the mound tonight. We are expecting to see Hunter Dobbins at some point in this series as well, Derek. I know you had the piece on that, the Cardinals upshifting into that six-man rotation once again. What is your belief on the plan after those couple of starts? Are they planning to leave Hunter Dobbins here? Are they going to downshift back into a five-man? What can you give us in terms of your insight from being around the club, what the plans are with that rotation?
They're going to read and react to how it goes. They want to, obviously it hinges on who pitches well, right? Like, what does Dobbins do? Dobbins, another guy coming off of injury. What is his level of efficiency? I mean, I could see a scenario where Thursday, when he starts against opposite Paul Skeens, 4 innings would be a real godsend for the Cardinals from him, which seems odd to say, right? That still leaves 5 that they have to cover with the bullpen, and the bullpen will be down an arm because they're making the move to add a 6th starter. So, I think long relief is going to be a real question, and that sort of leads into then what direction do they go with these guys? They have said over and over again, and they say this quietly, privately, publicly, all the realms of all the adverbs of how you can say things, that they're committing to Leahy in the way that they committed to Matthew Liberatore last year. They see this as that kind of situation, and they feel that they have time to do that. They want to give him time to breathe as a starter. They know that there's going to be a learning curve. There's going to be some up and down. There's going to be some bruising games, and they want to see progress every time out. But they're committed to this. They don't want to move him, put him on the yo-yo between roles like they did Liberatore a few years ago. They want to commit like they did Liberatore last year, and that's really on their mind. Dobbins can do a lot of different things. He can start. He can do long relief. I had talked to him yesterday, and he even brought that up. He said, he just wants to find a way to be in the majors. That's the goal, and he's done a lot of different things. That's
interesting. Just as a follow-up on that, and Derek, I'm asking you to speak for the organization, so I know that can be a little tough sometimes, but just to get your insight, because you're around the club day to day, what do they view as the upside of doing that with Kyle Leahy? Because I got it with Matthew Liberatore. This is a guy that's had the success in the minor leagues as a starter. He was a high-level prospect. They traded for him in that big trade that we all know a lot about now with Randy Arozarena. Like, I get it. That makes sense to me. With Leahy, it just seems as though he would be so far down the pecking order of starters that would be in the rotation, even this time next year, much less when they're ready to contend again. I just feel like he would make more sense in like the Steven Matz role than he would in the Matthew Liberatore role to me. But maybe I'm misreading that. Do they view it differently? Yeah, their pecking order is different than yours. Interesting. I mean, they see him and the assortment of pitches he has. They're big believers in him, and this is not a new thing. This is something that they've talked about. Going back to Andrew Kittredge. Remember when Andrew Kittredge was with the Cardinals? Andrew Kittredge told me that the reliever in the bullpen who needed to be a starter was Kyle Leahy. He said he'll be a better starter. He's got that upside, and they need to make that move. And what was that, 2 years ago? And, Kittredge was one of the first guys to kind of tell me, he obviously has been around. He was a veteran, but he also can read the tea leaves, and he was listening to what he was hearing from the Cardinals as well and their view of him. So I think, it's an interesting exercise to do, right? I always like doing that. Like when you say, okay, where is he on the pecking order for next year? And I got asked this question during the Q&A there at stltoday.com, about like if they have 5 starters better than the next year than the 5 starters they have now,
what would the Cardinals consider that? And I said, like, I don't know, winning the lottery jackpot. I mean, they would be thrilled to have 5 guys better. And I think when you look at the depth chart and you go through it, I'd be really interested to see where you would list Kyle Leahy's upside. And that's key, because if you're going to put Richard Fitz in there and Quinn Matthews in there and Liam Doyle in there and Tanner Franklin in there, you're doing those guys on upside. So do Kyle Leahy on upside too. And I would imagine that there'll be probably a conservative ranking for maybe us. But the Cardinals would have him slightly higher than any of us.
Derrick, speaking of upside, we talked in the spring training about where we wondered where they were going to find offense or power with this team. And now we're talking about a team that has the 8th most home runs in Major League Baseball. Their slugging percentage has been much better than we predicted. How surprised are you that they're showcasing this power?
Yeah, yes, I am surprised. We'll see if it has quote unquote staying power. It's coming from, sources that are lifting it up maybe beyond expectations. You got JJ Wetherholt with 3 home runs in 3 days. You had the 8 home runs there by Jordan Walker to start off the year. Alec Burleson hasn't really gotten a hold of many home runs here lately. You figure he might lead the team in home runs. You could see that happening. So yeah, I think, I don't know how much of that is like a product of the moment and how much of that is a trend. Maybe it's something where at the end of the year I'll look back and go, man, I was wrong about this power team. But I think give it time. There's still a power question with this team. It needs to be more consistent, it needs to come from more areas. It needs to come from some of the guys that are supposed to provide power. JJ has that in his game, but Herrera needs more of it in his game. Burleson needs more of it in his game. Walker obviously had that big start, but has cooled off here. He needs more of it in his game. So I think when you look at power, you look at where it's coming from. The slugging is interesting because this should be a doubles team. Like, it should be able to increase its slugging with its doubles, just because of the ballpark it plays in, because of the speed some of them have, and because of the style of hitters. This should be a double team that does have a fine slugging percentage, even a really good slugging percentage, because they're inflating it with doubles.
Derrick Goold joining us here on 101 ESPN. You mentioned J.J. Wetherholt, and man, another big performance by him last night. And I used to say this a lot about Brendan Donovan when he first came up, where it's like, man, he's just impacting games in different ways, whether it's getting on base or going first to third, a good defensive play, just something every night that impacts the game in a winning way. And that seems to be what we're seeing with J.J. Wetherholt, and that's not something you see very often from a player his age. So I wanted to ask you, as somebody that has a really big Rolodex of Cardinals baseball over the last 20-plus years that you've been able to monitor, J.J. Wetherholt is the most impressive Cardinals rookie since blank for you, Derrick.
Oh, my gosh. Most impressive Cardinals rookie position player?
Yeah, let's go position player-wise.
Probably. You got Oscar Taveras, who had his life cut short. That's a tragedy. He was very impressive. Didn't have the time in the majors to show that. Died in 2014, shortly after his debut. So that's you kind of gravitate towards there. I think you, as far as rookies who then had careers after that, I think you look towards Matt Carpenter. Matt Carpenter, very impressive rookie. Actually, very, very impressive player before he even made his debut and what he was doing and how he got attention. You could look at Colton Wong as well. He was a strong rookie, though didn't kind of bounced around a little bit at the beginning, but could do a lot of things to help games. But I think it's Matt Carpenter, probably just off the top of my head. I'm trying to think if there's been another one. If you expand it to pitchers, you probably could make the case that JJ's had the best first month of a Cardinal since Michael Wacha, right?
Yeah,
that would be, which is super impressive.
What's been the part of his game that surprised you the most? Because I know we talked about him in spring training, and you said there were people that talked to you and said, hey, he's already the best hitter on the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And now I see what they're talking about. But the power has surprised me a little bit. The defense at second has certainly surprised me relative to my own personal expectations coming into the season. For you, what would you put as the thing that's jumped off the field for you with J.J. Wetherholt?
He is an accelerated learner. If there is a kind of an academic level of a gifted baseball player, someone who learns things quickly, it's J.J. Wetherholt. He came to spring training, and in those first couple weeks, I mean, there were moments where it looked rocky at second base. He was working on things. He took some, missteps. He had some, the speed of the game was a little bit much. He had a few misplays, you might remember, in that first exhibition game. And it was like, okay, well, I mean, he'll get around to it. But he, the manager likes to say he condensed time. That's his phrase, that Ali Marmol likes to condense time. I'm more of an accelerated learning curve kind of guy. Like, J.J. Wetherholt's the kid who comes into Calc 1 and is on Calc 3 by the end of the second month. He's just he's got a great aptitude and accelerated learning style. And the defense is probably the chief example of that, but you also see it at bat to at bat. Last night was very impressive for the Cardinals for a lot of reasons. One, that they could go from absolutely no offense to the most timely offense of all, that they could jump a pitcher who has not allowed a home run, but also just how they kind of held true and weren't doing the same things twice. They weren't going to face the same. J.J. Wetherholt faced 4 different pitchers last night in 4 at-bats. I mean, as a rookie, he was thrown against 4 different major league pitchers, thrown from different arm angles with different speeds. One was a lefty. He was out there facing a funky lefty at the front, and he's able to kind of keep things together and not let one at-bat or one approach leak into the next. That is such a skill, and he's able to do it like fast. He's able to improve fast.
Derrick Goold, our guest here on 101 ESPN. Last question for you, Derrick, that I've got. I know we asked about center field last week, and there had already been some changes that were taking place. Last night we saw Nathan Church get the start in center. He has been playing so well lately and was about, 6 inches away from another home run last night at PNC. You had made mention in your article recently that Lars Nootbaar, the expectation is he'll be back in the lineup when he is able to do so 60 days after being placed on the injured list, so less than a month away now. What do you think is the plan over the next month in terms of their outfield playing time? How do you see that going, Derrick?
Real quick on Lars, that's the Cardinals' plan, but keep an eye on it because he needs to get in games soon.
Yeah.
If they're going to recreate spring training, they're going to have 20 days of games for him. That's the length of a rehab assignment. So you're not quite on that yet, but if he's going to return right after he's eligible, he does need to get in games to recreate spring. So that'll be the tell as to the timing of when they expect him back. Until that time, they continue. It's a little bit like what we were talking about with Leahy. I mean, they want to give these guys time. They want to continue the rotation that they have. Nathan Church has been very impressive. I think he's dialed up the playing time that he's getting. I think you're seeing him get a bit more because of his performance. I'm not so sure that that's coming at the cost of Victor Scott. Maybe one day did when Victor Scott was given a work day. But I think they're still interested in having Scott be a part of that rotation and figure things out and work toward it. I mean, it's a lot like. It's just we're all like in a different frame of reference with this Cardinals team because they're playing guys based on for decades we've watched the Cardinals and they're making decisions based on who's going to perform best today and who's going to help them win today. And a lot of their decisions that they're making today are like who's going to help them win in 2027, 2028. We have to kind of keep that in mind that that they're giving playing time to guys now with the hopes that they're better later. Not necessarily today. And that's part of the idea of the rotation with the outfield. That's part of the idea of continuing to give Victor Scott time to find his game and find his identity as an offensive player.
Derrick, we appreciate the time as always. It's a pleasure to be able to catch up with you. Enjoy yourself out in Pittsburgh, one of my favorite destinations that is not necessarily like a national destination for a lot of people. So enjoy yourself out there. Enjoy the great ballpark. We'll talk with you again next week.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You got it. That's Derrick Goold joining us here on 101 ESPN. Appreciate his time as always, hopping on with us on BK and Ferrario. What did you think of his statement on Kyle Leahy, Alex? Because I would say that's the thing that maybe was, I don't know about surprising, but the thing that stood out to me most about our conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense if that's their perspective. I don't view it that way. I think I view Kyle Leahy long-term as a bullpen arm, just because of what he mentioned of him struggling in the minor leagues, trying to be the starter. I know he's got the pitch arsenal, but feels like something that you've got so many pitchers coming up through your pipeline that it would make sense. You try it, and then if it doesn't work, you could go back to the bullpen role. But if they view it the same as Matthew Liberatore, where they're like, hey, this guy's got the pitch arsenal to be a starter, what he said about Victor Scott applies to Kyle Leahy. This is the season to try and give him the opportunity to prove he can help you in 27 and 28. So surprising from our perspective, probably, but I guess it makes a lot of sense if you're the Cardinals just to see if we've got something else, and it's a lost season in their eyes, so why not try it?
Far be it for me to disagree with somebody as smart as Chaim Bloom and everybody else that's a part of this front office. I disagree with him. Like, I watched Kyle Leahy. He's 28 years old. He'll be 29 next year. This is not the same as Matthew Liberatore. Matthew Liberatore was 25 years old. He had the pitch mix and the stuff to be able to have some upside as a starting pitcher. Kyle Leahy's getting up there in age already. And now you're talking about him transitioning into a new role. Yes, he has a bunch of different pitches. I'm not sure how many of them are like plus pitches. He doesn't have swing and miss stuff. He has a high ground ball rate, sure, but man, those guys are a dime a dozen. I can find them anywhere. Like Andre Palante is a high ground ball guy. You've got multiple of those guys in your system already. I don't know, man. I understand what they're trying to accomplish here with Kyle Leahy, but if it's coming at the expense of opportunities for somebody with a slightly higher upside, I don't really see what we're going for here in the long term, unless they think other teams are going to be interested in trading for him. But I also don't get the sense that he's the kind of guy that a lot of teams would trade for. And I think he would have more upside in a trade if he's one of those bullpen arms that a team can acquire at the deadline.
I think long-term for the Cardinals is just this year. I don't think long-term for the Cardinals is beyond this year. I think it's just...
Derrick was seeming to suggest, and this is Derrick speaking for what the Cardinals view it as, is if they view him as the Matthew Liberatore role, that is a long-term assessment that he's going to be in their rotation.
But he's got to compete with all of these guys in the pipeline,
That's what Derrick was saying, is that they seem to view it as he is in that conversation with those other guys.
I mean, I'd have to have a conversation with them down at the people around the ballpark. But, like, I wrote down just based on, like, how I picture this long-term based on upside. Doyle, Matthews, Senja, Franklin are the first four that come to my mind when I think just upside for what you're hoping for in your rotation. Okay, so he's not going to beat any of those four out. And then it comes down to a question of, okay, can he beat out someone like a Motts or a McGreevy to then take on that 5 spot, or external additions, or Fitz and Dobbins? Like, I don't know who all he's beating out. And if we're being honest, the age thing is a factor, to BK's point.
He's 29, man.
He's 29. Well,
he'll be 30 next year.
Yeah, Motts is going to be, what, 25, I believe? McGreevy's younger than that. Like, I'm kind of with you. If you're going to do it this year, I get it, right? Because if he takes a spot at Dobbins, I'm just going to be honest, it doesn't bother me, right? And Fitz was one guy that was interesting, but he's now done for the year. It's not a conversation until we start to say, okay, Matthews is ready, and that would be really the only one. Maybe Motts, maybe if you wanted to say Motts gets ready by the end of the year, then it'd be a conversation. But for the long term, I just don't see him as a starter. I agree with you there.
It's also going to be a conversation about money eventually. Like, this year, Andre Palante is making $4 million through the arbitration system. His performance could potentially mirror that of Andre Palante in terms of he comes in as a reliever, but he gets some extra innings in that capacity. He was like 90 innings last year at the major league level. This year, he's going to be a starter. So next year, in year one of arbitration, he might be similar to where Palante was in year one of arbitration. It's like couple million bucks. And then it starts to get more expensive. You got 4 years of ARB with Kyle Leahy, so you still have 4 more years of control. But this is not your typical, hey, year one as a starter, you're making $800,000. Year two, $800,000. Year three, no. He's going to get older and more expensive, and he's got all of these other guys that are backfilling a spot in the rotation. I don't know. I view it differently than the organization does right now, and that's fine. We can have a difference of opinion. We'll see who ends up being right on this. I'm wrong all the time. Cardinals are wrong about stuff all the time. That's the nature of doing this for a living and doing what they do for a living. But I do find him to be a really interesting test case for what they're going to do in their rotation. I just think there's more value in him in the Steven Matz role than him in the Matthew Liberatore role, personally. And I think you can go back to last year as the example. We just view it as being different examples for the kind of role that he should be in. All right, alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. If you guys missed any of our conversation with Derrick Goold, definitely recommend checking it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That is all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
Coming up next, I do want to spend some more time on JJ Wetherholt. He is keeping some very rare company right now. We'll tell you about it next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals took game 1 of their 4-game set last night at the Pittsburgh Pirates. Game 2 will be tonight. 5:40 will be first pitch. Kyle Leahy will be on the mound for St. Louis. In other news across Major League Baseball, the Philadelphia Phillies now say that they have fired Rob Thompson. Don Mattingly will be taking over as the interim coach. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Swing, high fly ball, deep right center field, at the track, at the wall. J.J. Wetherholt ties it up. Welcome home, rookie.
Some pretty impressive homecomings over the last 10 days. First, it was Mason Wynn going down to Houston, had a big hit in that one. And then last night, the home run for J.J. Wetherholt as he returns to his hometown in Pittsburgh. That audio courtesy of Cardinals TV alongside Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. J.J. Wetherholt now is only batting .238. That's supposed to be his calling card, and yet it's been maybe the weakest tool that we've seen from him so far this year. And I don't mean that to disparage J.J. Wetherholt. He's been incredibly impressive, but he's batting .238. He's getting on base 36% of the time, which is just an outrageous number for a young player in his first extended run in the big leagues. And he's slugging .429, Alex. So far this season, he has 6 home runs. He has scored 22 runs on the season. And at this point in the season, he has an OBP of .359. I mentioned those numbers because I did a little research last night, boys.
Uh-oh.
You ready for this? Here's the list of players in the last 25 years that are J.J. Wetherholt's age or younger, with at least 6 home runs, scored at least 20 runs, and had an on-base percentage of at least .355 at this point in their career. So through 28 games in their respective careers. Sit down. This is a fun ride. The most recent one to do so was Davis Schneider in 2023, of course. The names get better, I promise.
I was going to say, well, that's not a fun ride.
All right, I don't
The
want to hear
roller
the
coaster
rest.
just crashed before it started.
Beyond that, here we go. Will Smith in 2019, Pete Alonso in 2019, Bo Bichette in 2019, Rhys Hoskins in 2017, Rafael Devers in 2017, Gary Sanchez in 2016. All right, outlier. Kyle Schwarber in 2015, Yasiel Puig in 2013, Matt Kemp in 2006, Jeff Francoeur in 2005, and Adam Dunn in 2001. End of list.
Adam Dunn, that's a blast from the past.
Loved Adam Dunn.
Those are some really freaking good baseball players. And Davis Schneider on a list along with J.J. Wetherholt, Alex.
Davis Schneider's the one that we'll go off the comp with.
Yeah. We have mentioned Bo Bichette before as a comparison for J.J. Wetherholt. You go back and read some of the prospect guides on what Bo Bichette was supposed to be when he entered the big leagues. It's pretty similar. Reads similarly to what some have said about J.J. Wetherholt. But then you go back and look at how he got started in his career. He never had the patience at the plate that we've seen from J.J. Wetherholt. He was always more of a contact first. He's going to chase that stuff outside of the zone. Not a huge strikeout guy, but more like an Alec Burleson type of approach, where it's super aggressive and he's going to hit for a high average. And that's the thing to me that has maybe surprised me a little bit, honestly, about J.J. so far in the big leagues. He is not going to take the bait. If you're throwing something outside of the zone, he ain't chasing. He's going to stay disciplined, and that is far more similar to a Matt Carpenter style approach than what we saw from Bo Bichette, for example. So I wanted to read off those names, Alex, because it speaks to how rare it is for a player at this age to have that kind of a well-rounded game. What have you made of the early goings with J.J. Wetherholt for the Cardinals?
I mean, he's living up to the hype that was this could be a difference maker for the Cardinals' future outlook. When you draft that high, you need to have some type of superstar talent. And although he doesn't have the power that I think everybody wants in St. Louis, he does have the attributes that you need from a guy to be one of the faces of an offense that can carry you to a World Series. And my biggest thing with him, yes, the power is impressive, but mine has always been his ability to recognize pitches and force pitchers to pitch to him rather than him make mistakes at the plate. I've always used that to Matt Carpenter ever since that first pitch that he saw on opening day. And it's like, man, he can get an 0-2 count and turn it into a 3-2 count with ease, and you're forcing the pitcher to make a mistake. And J.J. Wetherholt has the ability to make you pay on that mistake. So I don't know if he's ever going to be the number one guy that you turn to win you baseball games. But, man, if he is a second or a third piece in that three-headed monster that you need, which he looks like he is, that's success. Like, I'm not saying he becomes it, but what Trey Turner was in the early portion of his career is that leadoff guy with the threat of just always causing damage. That's what you hope that J.J. Wetherholt is, or Bo Bichette, whomever you want to comp him to. He's got those attributes that creates winning baseball players.
Yeah, as teams start to try and go into the zone against him, that's when you're going to see his hit tool start to progress. Because, like you said, it's been kind of surprising that he's not hitting for a ton of average. But then you look and see he's getting on base. I mean, it's just the fact that he is dictating at bats is impressive for someone his age. And I would be shocked if he ends up becoming someone like a Gary Sanchez, who is a part of that list that you mentioned there. Because like, you think back to Sanchez's profile, that guy swung and missed a lot, right? That's not in Wetherholt's game. You know, he has more of the traits of those guys that were able to sustain this. Maybe not so much the power trait of Alonso, but definitely the Bo Bichette, the guy that we had comped him to. So, I mean, that does feel like a guy that's going to be a critical driving force towards the next window of Cardinals winning baseball. You know, I was skeptical if he would develop into becoming that guy. But he certainly looks like he could potentially be that. And when he starts to hit for average, it's going to lift up that on-base percentage a little bit more. We'll see if the slug will remain at this spot or not. But even if it doesn't, as that average starts to kind of come up and that on-base stays up there, he's doing his role as a leadoff hitter.
I think I underestimated what his ceiling could be. That's like, we're 28 games into this thing. There's a lot of baseball left to be played. Baseball is going to adjust. They'll find something. They're going to expose him. He's going to go through a tough time. Like, all of that stuff is still out there, right? I think there's more upside here than I gave it credit for. That's because of the power. I think the power is a little more real than I gave it credit for. It's because of the lack of chase that's in his game. It's because of the well-rounded nature to him, where I think he's going to be able to give you 15, 20 stolen bases. He's going to play plus defense at second base for you. He's maybe more athletic than I gave him credit for. I also, and T-Bone, I know you're going to hate this part because this is like more of the non-tangible stuff.
Oh, boy.
I think guys are rallying around him a little bit. I think he has more of the like Pied Piper kind of thing where like him and Mason already have such a good connection at shortstop and at second. I don't know. There's just more here than I thought there would be, especially this early on with J.J. Wetherholt.
It's the youthful energy. I think the same thing happened with Jimmy Snuggerud this season when he started to perform well. Guys rallied around that just for how impressive he was. And when you have that youth, it already brings a little bit of a different vibe into a clubhouse, which they're already filled with youth. But a young piece like J.J. Wetherholt, and then when you see the talent that he's capable of, I mean, how does that not inspire everybody else to be like, oh, damn, we got something special here, and now let's step my game up so that we can put our team in the best position?
I don't know. I do wonder if he does drive some guys to try and be better, and the reason I say that is because of what we've talked about, what Derek told us in spring training, where some people look at him and already say he's the best hitter on the team. And you see that and go, holy cow, this kid is coming in and just kind of taking the bull by the horns and going. It's time for me to kind of stick with him, right? It's time for me to try and take my game to the next level so I can be with this kid while he kind of goes along. I do wonder if there's some of that plays into it with J.J. Wetherholt, because it's not supposed to be this easy, right? He's supposed to come up and he's supposed to struggle. Like, look at Alec Burleson when he first got up here, man. He had a tough time figuring out the major leagues. Look at Mason Wynn's first month at the big leagues. Holy cow, he was terrible in the first month. It's impressive what he is doing and how he's just been able to just step into that lineup and go. And to your guys' point, if it matters or not, I don't know. But the fact that this is a young locker room allows him to kind of fit in a little bit better compared to if you had the Goldschmidts or you had the Arenados or you had the Contrerases, where it was, hey, you kind of got to look up to that guy and you got to kind of let that guy be the show. You got to let him be the guy in the dugout. Man, this whole dugout, like, this isn't supposed to be a shot towards him. they're young and dumb and fun. Like that's kind of the role of the St. Louis Cardinals this season.
Yeah, it is. I think some of this is just like he gives them more trust at the top of the lineup. Like if you're Alec Burleson, I trust that guy's going to get on in front of me. If you're somebody at the bottom of the order, maybe you can take a better at bat because you're not trying to break the game wide open because you trust that when the lineup turns over, JJ is going to do what's necessary, right? And he's doing all of the little things right now. Those are typically, that's stuff you have to learn at the big league level a lot of the time. I mean, we've seen it with Jordan Walker, right? Hey, man, some of the offense early on was really nice to watch, but then you'd see him go into the field, and there was a lot that was left to be desired. You see some of these guys get on the bases, and it's like, well, what is happening? Why is he making... Ivan Herrera does this sometimes. We're like, what's going on once you get on? But he's so good at so many other areas, or for him, defensively behind the plate. It is still a work in progress. With JJ, there's just really none of that. What would you guys say is the weakest part of his game right now? Truly asking. It's hard to poke holes in it, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It looks like Brendan Donovan plus right now.
Yeah. I would say, I don't even, just his batting average, but like that's something that, again, I think is going to come up.
That's
I think so too. I think that speaks to more the way that he's being pitched than it does anything else. And if you're going to get on base 36% of the time, I don't really care how you come about that, whether it's by average or by walk, just get on.
Yeah.
Especially as a leadoff hitter.
Because like he seems to be good against high velo. Seems to, if he's not, I don't know what his numbers are against lefties, but the eye tells me he's fine left on left so far this year. He's playing like a Gold Glove second baseman.
Yeah.
He steals. Maybe you'd say like maybe you'd want to see him run a little bit more because I think he could have a higher stolen base number than I expected. And then he's hitting for pops. So yeah, there's not really anything to poke a hole at in his game.
It's pretty crazy. I was always kind of the low man on JJ Wetherholt. I get it now. I get what all of the scouts were selling us on. I get what Keith Law told us about. I get why the Cardinals were so excited about him. When we talked to people behind the scenes, even out at the ballpark, whenever we've been down there, a lot of them have been very excited about what JJ was going to be when he gets to the big league level. We're seeing it now. It makes a lot of sense as to why everybody was so excited about what he could be at the major league level.
Still not going to pay him.
Not yet.
That's right. No, we're going to hold that line.
Why? Not yet.
We're going to hold that line.
Because you don't need to.
Yeah.
You can.
Until he's 29. And then when he's good in 29, or when he's good at 29, I'll pay him the money he's worth.
100%. Coming up in 15 minutes, Jeremy Rutherford joins the show. But next, the Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN. Out of curiosity, Alex, have you thought about what you want your funeral to be like?
No. I don't spend the little time that I have to myself thinking about my death.
Just me, huh?
Yeah.
T-Bone, have you?
Not really. But I'm curious to
Honestly, I
know-
don't care. I'm off. I'm done at that time.
Do you want a funeral?
Clock
Have you
is
thought
out.
about, hey, I actually
no.
don't want a ceremony.
No,
I'm
I've
good.
already told Katie I want to be cremated.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you have thought about it.
Well,
I got him.
Is that
but is that really thinking about your funeral?
Yeah.
It's just I don't want to have an open casket. That's what I've thought about because it's weird to me. It's so
I agree
weird.
with that.
People,
I'm with you.
I've seen people take selfies at open casket funerals, and it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, the reason I ask is because that's kind of more in line with this funeral that was in the news recently. Woman brings dead husband back as hologram to hold his own funeral Q&A.
Okay, that's kind of awesome.
AI is now being used, at least at one funeral, for pre-recorded answers. So Bill was dead, and at his funeral,
R.I.P. Bill.
he had a hologram where he was answering questions from anybody in the audience as if he was still alive. How would you feel if you went to a funeral and saw something like this?
Freak me out.
See, I got to be honest, at first, maybe later on in the funeral, would at first be like, okay, this is kind of interesting. This is kind of cool. Now, I would never ask a question. But I would be
The
intrigued
dead
by
person
it.
is sitting right over there. I don't want to have a
Can we have
conversation.
like a little animatronic that like moves his arm while he talks?
What'd you call it?
Animatronic? Yeah, you got it.
I thought I said that right.
He said animatronic.
Whatever.
Kind of like Finding Nemo.
Yeah, it's an enemy. No, that's weird. That's weird. I would be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't
Somebody
know.
said they do that at Splashback Deuce on the YouTube chat. Said they do that at World War II museums now.
Yeah, they do have those where they've got
Interesting.
the old. They do
Like the
videos
old
with
wax museum, but now
Yeah.
it's
I
with.
mean, it's stealing off of Night at the Museum. Wasn't that the premise in one of the Night at Museum films? Didn't the museum turn into like holograms? I think that was like the third one at the beginning, where like all of the characters were holograms and you went to the museum to see it.
Yeah, I'm out on this. I don't need this. Once
maybe at a
somebody's
funeral,
gone,
funeral
I'm
court
out.
timing.
Do you know how much that's
I'm
going to
good.
cost too?
The World War
a
One
casket's
museum,
expensive.
or
That
World
stuff
War
is
II
interesting
one,
to me.
Yeah, like that one is interesting because you hear their stories and them tell it. Because I
Yeah,
have
I'm
heard
good
of
with
that, and
that.
I would be cool to see it.
Yeah, that
maybe
sounds cool.
funerals,
A
not
funeral?
the right time.
No, please. Don't throw me a funeral.
Can we do this for you? Will you have tone at your funeral, please?
Yeah.
There's a tone
If
meter
there
on
was
it.
AI for me, it would absolutely include some amount of time.
You know what? Then I might shed a tear at your funeral, and I'll go, I remember that. I remember what he would tell me. He vehemently disagrees.
From the
good old
314, by
days.
the way. Guys, I'm not able to tune in all the time, but I just want to thank you guys for the recommendation of the Budweiser Terrace for young kids at a Cardinals game. I took my almost 3-year-old and my 1-year-old boy on Saturday. They had a blast. My oldest was asking when we can go again. Super awesome feeling being able to pass on the fandom to my son, so thank you. Telling you guys, it is an awesome area. I know it sounds weird because it's the Budweiser Terrace. It's a great area to go hang out with your family, especially little ones, because instead of them feeling like they are trapped in this like confined space, they can actually walk around. They can move around, they can hang out, they can be silly, do whatever, your 3 or 4 or 5-year-old kid is going to do. And you don't have to feel, self-conscious about it because there's a bunch of people sitting around you while this kid is like throwing his peanuts on the ground, right? That's fine in the Budweiser Terrace area. Highly recommend it. It's a great spot to go hang out with your family at a Cardinals game.
Is that where you're going? You're going to the game on Friday?
Yeah, I don't know where we're
Are you going
not,
Friday?
Yeah.
I'll see you there, man.
No, you won't. I'll make sure.
Yeah, you guys should hang out together at the
I'm going
Budweiser
Friday
Terrace.
again.
Make sure I bob and weave.
Going with the fam.
I have no idea where we're sitting, to be honest. My cousin's
We
getting
are
tickets.
buying cheap seats up in the very top, and we're going to go sit in the
Yeah.
Budweiser Terrace.
Yeah. I
It's
don't
the
think you're going to
Diet
be able
Coke night on Friday, Alex.
Yeah, you gotta
that's
get a
why we
shirt?
had to get there.
You got to get your... is it really?
No, absolutely not. No, we're
It's
not obsessed
literally
with
why
Diet
we're going.
I know, we're not obsessed with Diet Coke like Kara is. I got to be honest, I don't know how long my kids will last. It's a,
9
first pitch?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, is it?
By
Oh, yeah.
7:45, my kids are usually
$5
ready to go.
Budweisers and Busch Light at the top. the Crown Bar.
That might be dangerous for how stressful it would be
Just
at
give the kids a
$7.50.
They're
little, like,
smaller
cotton candy,
pours,
don't
but
make it.
$5 you can't really
Give them
argue with
cotton
it.
candy. That's the worst idea ever.
Did you just say give them cotton
At
candy?
7:15 at night. You know
Yeah,
what,
let's
man?
go. Like, give him the energy. I would say
Take
like
back all
BK
the
gives
options
it
of you
to
being a
Luka,
babysitter
but
for me.
I don't think Luka needs the energy. Sounds like that guy is just
dude.
constantly going.
Yeah. No, we don't need anything. Last night he was up until 11 o'clock.
Oh my God!
Just going.
By 8
We
o'clock.
tried. I put him in he was in his room by 9:30.
Alex was in bed before Luka.
By 8 o'clock, if my kids are still awake, they are The Exorcist. Just head spinning in circles, vomiting everywhere. That's how crazy it gets in my house.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, we're going to be joined by our friend, the Blues insider for The Athletic, Jeremy Rutherford, to ask him, how dare you, sir? How dare you say the Blues aren't going to make any moves this offseason? We'll ask JR next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T1, I'm BK. We're going out to the Kiley and Thompson hotline to be joined by Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic. Earlier today, he posted the piece that a lot of people are talking about. It has people buzzing, Alex. Ahead of a massive 2 months for the St. Louis Blues, 10 offseason predictions in which JR says, they're going to do a whole lot of nothing this offseason. JR, appreciate the time, man. How you doing today?
Doing well. Yeah, I was just telling Tanner and, of course, listening to you guys earlier that, some people might read a story like that and they think that, okay, from the first word you typed, you were thinking you were going to go this direction and say that they're not going to do anything. That wasn't the case. Like, I sat down and I said, okay, are they going to trade Thomas? No, they're not. Are they going to trade Kyrou? Well, I don't think they should sell low. Are they going to trade Binnington? I don't think they are. And then you get to the end of the story and you're getting ready to hit the send button and send it off to your editor, and you go, holy smokes, I don't have them doing much here. So I personally do think there will be something. I think there will be something significant. I think they definitely see the need to kind of change over part of this team. It's just that those topics, those top players, those storylines that have been storylines for months, I just couldn't see any of those coming together as I sat down and wrote that yesterday.
This is not the usual, but I'm actually not the one mad at you today, JR. I got no issues with anything you wrote. I think what you said was eminently reasonable. Alex, though, hated it. Alex, go ahead and tell him.
I don't think I got mad at you, JR. I got mad because BK always had to be right. So that's what we got into on that one. So here's the issue I had when I read it, JR. It's just what you said. We heard the longest time this season that there's going to have to be change because you can't keep bringing it back. But the problem with all of this, as you pointed out in your article, if it's not Jordan Kyrou, I'm not sure where the change takes place. And I don't believe, just my opinion, that Schenn and Falk are enough to say you made change for this team.
Well, and I agree. And I've written for months and months, hey, listen, you can trade Brayden Schenn. You can trade Justin Falk. And those are two deals that are likely going to happen at the deadline. But does that really do anything? Does that really change the outlook of this team for the next couple of years? Now, at that time, I didn't know they were going to entertain talking about, Robert Thomas. And, I didn't know that Pavel Buchnevich was going to be impossible to trade. I thought there were a couple things that you could probably do. But now you look at it, and Kyrou probably is that move that makes the most sense, that would change enough that, he has some value. It just comes down to what would you be willing to accept? And BK there, my lawyer, I should have him respond to some of the
unsuccessful one, JR.
I just think that, hey, do you want to make change for change's sake? Yeah, I think that you're probably at that point. But I also think that, like you guys said earlier, I mean, you're not accepting a second-round pick for a guy who scored 30-plus 3 straight years and was your team leader. And people might be driving around saying, yes, you do. But, that's just not good asset management. That's not how you do it. Listen, deals, as much as you want them to be made today and enter the season with a new-look roster, a lot of managers have made their careers, Doug Armstrong included, by being patient. And say you're 2 months into the season and Jordan Kyrou's got 22 goals and now you're in a situation where you're going to get something for him. I'm not saying that's how it's going to play out. I'm not saying that's how everybody would do it, but you got to be careful with what you talk about doing.
So this is a quick follow-up for Kyrou, JR, and I guess it's just more of a general question, because I think in the sense of, like, you're not selling low on Jordan Kyrou is, well, you bring him back and you hope he has a rebound season. Do you think he's going to have the option to have a rebound season? And what I mean by that is he no longer is a top line player. He's probably a second line or a third line player. He played or averaged about 15 and a half minutes. He's not getting first power play time for you. He'll be on the second power play unit. Is he going to have the ice time and the opportunities in games to go out there and score 36 goals and pick up 70 points?
Yeah, fair question, but twofold. I think, if you're looking to move him and you're hoping to that he gets out to a good start, you got to give him, some ice time. And you got to give him – you can't just, give him 20 minutes and then say, hey, we're just going to give it to him and whether he doesn't perform or not. So, but at the same time, you have to give him the opportunity to bounce back. And listen, we've seen it before where players say they're going to hit the reset button and come back and have a better year next year, and they don't do it. Like you see the same thing year after year from some players who say that. But you just hope, if you're the Blues, that, what Jordan Kyrou said there at the podium as the Blues wrapped up their season, that he's going to come back a better player. So, hey, listen, all this could be moot if Alexander Steen has something up his sleeve and he's going to be able to pull off a move, and maybe they do accept a little bit less. Maybe they do attach a first-round pick, and maybe this is a bigger deal than maybe some of us could sit here and draw up. Maybe he will be moved this offseason, but if he's back, I still think he'd be in the top 6. I would guess that he's going to score more than 18 goals, and I would guess that at some point there'd be some value, more value than there is today.
So when are they trading for Brady Tkachuk?
How about that?
When they move Kyrou.
How about that? Hey, some breaking news with Brady Tkachuk. He had baby number 2 this past weekend. So
I thought you were about to give us something.
No, I thought you just had a scoop or something.
Significant there.
Come on, JR.
You guys know how long I've had that up my sleeve, a couple hours, knowing I was going to come on with you guys. But, yeah, obviously that's the big headline. Brady Tkachuk, Ottawa Senators, out of the playoffs, and leave it to the Senators. They rained on everybody's parade at the end of the season press conference there in Ottawa, saying there's no need to even have a conversation with Brady. Steve Stais, general manager, saying that. They believe he's going to be back. They want their leader to be back. I've always said that it comes down to whether Brady wants to be there and making the playoffs, although it ending with the disappointment. I'm sure he sits down and reevaluates in his mind what he wants to do. And we've seen players move in the past before their deals are up. We saw it with his brother, Matthew. So we'll see what happens with Brady. I wrote about it in the article today, and I thought it out that, can he help your team tomorrow? For sure he can. Would the Blues entertain the idea of checking into it? For sure they would. But you're talking about Doug Armstrong at the podium saying, are we a 1 or 3 year away team? And if you're a 3 year away team, maybe that still leads to you trading to Robert Thomas. Brady Tkachuk only 2 years younger than Robert Thomas. So, if you're sticking to that timeline in terms of players' age, Brady Tkachuk doesn't seem to fit that either if the Blues decide that they're 3 years away. So what do you have to give up? So I think there's a lot of questions before you could just say, get it done.
It seems like a dumb question to ask, but I'm only asking it because I see a lot of people arguing about it. Does Brady Tkachuk make your team better for the long run, JR?
Well, that's the thing, and that's what I tried to address in the story is that, hey, listen, is he going to come in next year to St. Louis and people are going to be excited, building's going to stay full, and, he's going to score some goals, throw his body around, captain-like material? Yeah, he can do that. But if the Blues sit down, and they talked about it at the end of the season, but they haven't confirmed anything, do they think they can compete next year or 2 years from now? Or are they still setting their sights on 3 years down the road, and they're going to bring in a Carbonneau and a Juracek and continue to play Stenberg and Lindstein? And if that's the case, then I don't know that you're giving up a couple first-round picks and, somebody not named Jordan Kyrou to bring in Brady Tkachuk next year. So I think that he would be great. I think I would want to see what you're trying to do before you just rubber stamp it and say, yeah, get it done.
JR, I know you've kind of made reference to it, but what do you think the asking price would be for a guy like Brady Tkachuk? What do you think is reasonable?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really high. I think that you got a guy who's got 2 years left on his deal. Granted, he'll need a raise at that point, but I think that you're looking at a top 6 forward that's produced recently. That's why I always, say, would Jordan Kyrou be somebody that the Senators would be even interested in? And then I think you're talking about a first-round pick, if not 2, or maybe a top-tier prospect. And, probably not enough time to get into, all the different options right here and now. But, I mean, are you looking – let's say it's not Jordan Kyrou. Let's say it's Jake Neighbors. Let's say it's a first-round pick. And let's say it's Justin Carbonneau or it's Theo Lindstein. That's what I'm saying. If you want Brady Tkachuk so bad, it might take that. And, oh, by the way, he's the same age as Robert Thomas. And, oh, yeah, the Blues are 3 years away from competing. Where's Brady Tkachuk going to be at when you get to that point? So I do think the price would be high. And I think that, like Steve Stais said, 31 teams around the league, that won them, that means that you get into the quote-unquote bidding war, and the price is definitely going to be high.
So just, and that, because I understand where you're coming from with that too, JR, of like Tkachuk and Thomas are the same age, and they were talking about trying to move out Thomas to get younger. With all that being said, how aggressive would you be if you're the Blues to try and move into the first or second overall pick at this year's draft? Because getting one of those kids, whether it's McKenna or Stenberg, fits more into the timeline, we think, than rather go out there and get a Brady Tkachuk or a Jason Robertson.
And I agree. And I'm not saying don't go after Brady. I'm just saying that if this is your direction, and it looks like it is, then I think that does make more sense, because that's going to be, maybe not a generational player in McKenna or Stenberg, but a really, really good one that's going to come in here and, fit your talent level, bring you some more skill, fit that age group. I think that would be really good. But, as BK said earlier, you got to have a partner. You can come in and say, I'll give you 11, 15, and wherever the Avs finish, 30, 31, 32, and will you take those 3 picks for number 1 or number 2 and come away with one of those 2 players? But you got to get somebody to say yes on that. And I think I've brought this up several times in the past, but that year that the Blues had 3 first-round draft picks, the year that Patrick Kane was number 1 overall, I had it from a couple sources saying that the Blues offered all 3 of their first-round picks to move up to number 1. And that year it was Kane. The Blackhawks said no. The rest is history. But teams have made pitches like that in the past, but sometimes it's hard to get those teams with the number 1 and number 2 to budge off.
Well, you can recreate history then, and you can offer the 11th, the 15th, the 31st, and Kyrou, and go get the 2nd overall pick from Chicago.
Yep. You can definitely try that. And I guess Chicago made no. Chicago, I guess, in that case, made a great decision to hang on to Patrick Kane. But this year it's tough. As McKenna and as Stenberg, are they those types of players? Probably not a Patrick Kane, but I think that, as you said, Alex, either one of those 2 guys in this Blues system would fit perfect.
Neighbors, let's call it Carbonneau and your first-round pick for Brady Tkachuk. You doing it, Alex?
Yeah, I do that.
JR?
I love Brady Tkachuk. I'm not doing that move.
That is an unpopular opinion, and I respect it.
What's the BK really respects it.
No, seriously,
what's the player that's making you say no on that?
Good question.
It's the collection of them, and I think it's because the Blues have to pick their direction. And what is the direction? Like, you can't keep going back and forth. You can't say we're doing a retool, we're out of the retool. We sped it up with Holloway and Broberg. Okay, now we missed the playoffs. Now we're back in the retool. You got the transition with Armstrong to Steen. I just envision this Blues team, and I could be off base on this, guys, that whether it's 2, 3, 4 years from now, you're looking at a Snuggerud, you're looking at a Neighbors, you're looking at a Dvorsky, you're looking at a Lindstein, a Juracek, and there's just a great foundation of maybe not superstar players, but different types of players, different skill sets. Both sides of the puck. When you look at forward, you look at defense, you got the goaltender in Hofer, and it's going to take some patience to get there. It's going to take saying, you know what, I love Brady, but, I just don't know if that's the right player with where the direction the Blues are going. Could it work out better if you got Brady and, 2, 3, 4 years from now, Neighbors and Carbonneau and the first round pick are just ordinary players and you should have made that trade for Brady? Yeah, that could happen. That's what makes, these conversations interesting. But I'm just saying, if you're the Blues and this is the direction you're going with all these good, young, talented players, and it's going to take a couple, 2, 3, 4 years, you just have to be patient.
God, I love that phrase in St. Louis. Be patient.
Yeah, it went well for the other team.
Yeah,
it'll probably go
where they're
well
at right now.
Too. Hey, JR.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. No. I don't want to cut you off. It's just, hey, listen, go get Brady Tkachuk. Make that deal today. Keep Robert Thomas.
It feels passive aggressive, JR.
Yeah, and contend for a playoff spot next season. There's nothing wrong with that path, but I just think that teams fail more often than not when they keep going back and forth on what they're trying to do. If that's the case, if that's what you wanted to do, then, why are you trying to trade Robert Thomas?
Full
with you
agree
on that one.
No disagreement here whatsoever. JR, appreciate the time, man. People can read that piece over at The Athletic. It's a really good one, and it will at least make you think. You might not love it, but it'll at least make you think, and that is what JR is great at doing over at The Athletic. Appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk with you again next week.
Yep, thanks, boys.
You got it. That's Jeremy Rutherford joining us here on 101 ESPN. You can find all of his great work over at The Athletic or follow him on Twitter at JP Rutherford.
There's a lot of people reacting to the deal that you said to where I said, yeah, it would be because they're saying I'm not giving up Justin Carbonell.
Let's talk about it on the other side here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Had a really good conversation with Jeremy Rutherford moments ago. If you missed it, check it out on the podcast page after the show today. Also talked with our guy, Derrick Goold, Cardinals insider for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. All of that can be found after the show on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, the free 101 ESPN app, and at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. Alex, you mentioned a lot of people commenting on the trade proposal that I threw out there. This is not anything confirmed or anything, just like JR mentioned, hey, you're probably talking about an established player, a pick, and a prospect. That's the kind of formula you typically see in these kinds of deals for established stars at the NHL level. So if the Blues wanted to get Brady Tkachuk, something like Jake Neighbors, Justin Carbonneau, and the Blues first-round pick, that might be the kind of package that the Senators would be asking for. And you said, hey, a lot of people on the text line commenting on that. You wanted to respond. Go ahead.
People are saying you don't give up Justin Carbonneau because he's your best piece right now in your system because he can score goals. I agree with that. In an ideal world, Carbonneau would not be in that trade proposal. It would be Kyrou. It would be Kyrou, Neighbors, and a first. But we're going under the premise of BK is Steve Staios in Ottawa, and that's the deal he said. In the scenario that I'm moving on from Carbonneau, well, Kyrou's here now. Kyrou's going for the, hey, we need you to rebound, and we're giving you another asset. We're giving Brady Tkachuk to this roster to fill the spot of where Jake Neighbors is at and saying we are putting a bona fide star in the league, whether you think he is or not. Brady Tkachuk is viewed as a star in the National Hockey League.
The guy was one of the top players on Team USA. That's a star in the league.
You're putting your top six of Tkachuk, Thomas, Snuggerud, Holloway, Dvorsky, and Kyrou. That's your top six next year. Mm-hmm. I look at that and say, well, if that's the deal that gets it done for Brady Tkachuk, I need a difference maker in my top six. Whether you think Justin Carbonneau is going to be a difference maker, Brady Tkachuk already is an established difference maker. I will take the sure thing versus I don't know what he becomes. And let's be blunt about this. None of these guys make you better unless Dalibor Dvorsky takes his game to the next level. Even with Tkachuk, with Jordan Kyrou, and that was my point where I asked JR about Jordan Kyrou, he's not playing with Robert Thomas. He's going to be playing next year with either Dalibor Dvorsky, Pius Suter, or Pavel Buchnevich as his center.
Correct.
Unless they upgrade the center position. I'm not sure what you guys think, but I don't know if you're just going to rebound and become a 35-goal scorer playing with those guys. Tarasenko is the comp that people go to. Yet Tarasenko's year after he was hurt and came back and scored 38 goals, he played with Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich. So I don't see Jordan Kyrou taking that step without an upgrade. So that's why in the scenario that you painted of this is what Ottawa's offering, yeah, I'm going for the sure thing versus a kid who might be really good in the NHL, but hasn't done it yet. And I'm upgrading my top six now so that they can start putting together contributions if you believe that's the core that's going to win for you.
And one of the criticisms that I've seen on this, and I think JR made mention to this as well, is, well, what does that mean for your timeline? You're telling me one thing and then you're doing another. To me, it would change your timeline. If you're trading for Brady Tkachuk, you are doing so with the understanding that we're trying to compete over the next 3 to 5 years. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I think needs to be taken into account here. This is not as though you're trading for a 32-year-old.
No.
Brady Tkachuk, if you trade for him, would be the kind of guy that you were extending long-term. The plan should be, at least in my belief, that you are going to sign him to the longest-term contracts that you can get him on, which would, I believe at that time, be 7 years.
Yeah.
So you have the next 2 plus 7 more would be the timeline you're in.
35 years old.
He's 35 years old. You've got, let's call it 6 years of his prime. So for the next 6 years, I'm trying to win while Brady Tkachuk is in his prime, while Jordan Kyrou is in his prime, while Robert Thomas is in his prime, and Dylan Holloway's in his prime, and Jimmy Snuggerud is in his prime, and hopefully while Dalibor Dvorsky takes that step to be a part of that as well. And while you have somebody like Broberg entering their prime and continuing in part with that, and Juracek in their prime as well, like Joel Hofer in his prime, that's your core. And now we continue to fill it in from there. So yeah, it's a bold strategy. There's no guarantees that this works out, but Tkachuk would change the timeline. Yeah. And now you're building around guys that are in that 23 to 28-year-old range, and those guys continue to grow together.
And if you're doing the timeline that JR kind of pointed there, and it's a valid point, if they're thinking like, hey, in 3 years, that's when we're hoping to kind of get back to this, then I think you take a different approach this offseason. I think you might have to consider trading Robert Thomas if the 3-year window is what, like if you're looking at from 3 years from now, we feel like the next 3 years aren't going to be pretty. then you might need to address trading Robert Thomas and go after Denoye or Iginla from the Utah Mammoth, because you got to go get guys that are 22, 23 years old. Because in 3 years, if you feel like, well, that's the window where we can look to start pushing, Thomas is going to be 29, almost 30. And that's a tough window to try and win right now in, because you need to pounce in about 2 or 3 years before he gets out of his early 30s. So they've got to address this timeline that they're in right now. They got to figure out, like, do we think we can win in a couple of years?
But I think the decision here chooses that for you. Like,
it at least makes it better.
Brady's the kind of thing where if you can get him, you go get him. That's my personal outlook
I don't
on
know
this.
if it makes you a winning team right away, though.
I don't know if it does,
I don't know if
but
it
I'd
does
like to
either.
find out.
I don't know if it does either, but to BK's point, I'm playing the long game then.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Brady Tkachuk becomes my franchise player.
No, you're right.
And then I can make decisions on Thomas and Kyrou and all of these other things down the road. But, like, the first thing that I want to do is find out what the plan is with that guy. Because that guy changes everything. Right? Like, Florida was a really good team before Matthew Tkachuk got there. It's a very different situation than what the Blues are in right now. I want to make that clear. But Florida became a Stanley Cup favorite when Matthew Tkachuk got there. He's the guy that changed that for them. He changed their outlook, and then a lot of other guys wanted to come play with Matthew Tkachuk. Now, St. Louis is not South Beach, and the situations are not entirely similar. So I'm not sure that you're going to see like a bunch of veterans suddenly flocking to play with Brady Tkachuk.
No.
But he is a draw, and you might see a veteran here or there at the back end of their career saying, you know what? If I want to win a cup, I think that guy's the kind of guy that I would like to hitch my wagon to. Yeah. I trust that he is going to be there when things are at the biggest possible moments. So, yeah, he's the kind of player that I move heaven and earth to go get that guy. Yeah. There are very few of them, but he's one of them, and he's 26 years old. So, yeah, I'm going to go make that move.
The hard part for you as a team is you still have to address your second-line center thing. And if you go after Tkachuk and you're aggressive, you're putting your eggs in the Dalibor-Dvorsky basket, which isn't a bad thing. I think Dvorsky can be a fine second-line center. He's probably a overqualified third-line player and an underqualified second-line player. But if you put stars around him, whether it's Holloway and Kyrou or Tkachuk and Kyrou, that's where you could at least start figuring out. The other factor in all of this is if you make that trade, you're going to still have to move somebody off of that roster, because at some point it's going to start getting expensive, because you're bringing in $8 million on top of Dylan Holloway getting a contract extension. Now you've got 4 guys making 8. Tkachuk's going to get the contract extension in a couple of years, and you don't know what Dylan Holloway's going to be looking at. And in that scenario, you're only shedding $3.7 million off.
Yeah. You also aren't going to be paying Jordan Binnington after next year.
So you're going to have to go get another goaltender and probably pay
him a couple $1 million.
I mean, I think your goalie situation is going to be about the same, because my expectation is Hofer's going to get about Binder money.
Sure.
And then the backup will get Hofer money now.
Maybe.
But the cap will be rising exponentially over the next few years. You're going from right now it's 95, and the current projections are 105, 113, 123. So, yeah, you're adding in another $8 million player for right now, and then beyond that, let's say it works out and he becomes a $12 million a year player. Well, that's adjusted for with the new cap. And these other guys, as a percentage of the cap, will actually be less in future years than what they are right now. So I don't think you actually do enter much of a cap crunch here. You're in a pretty good spot cap-wise. It's about getting the right players.
Yeah, you could get close to a cap crunch, though, because Holloway's going to get paid. Snuggerud's going to get paid after next season as well. Hofer's going to get paid. And I think with the cap going up, if he performs like he did this past year, I think you're talking more than what Jordan Binnington made.
Let's go through this real quick. Let's do some quick math on the fly. This never, ever, ever gets us in trouble.
Always dangerous.
Okay, let's say Dylan Holloway, because in this scenario, you're getting rid of Jake Naper, so you don't have to worry about that for his future contract. Dylan Holloway, what are we saying? He's going to make...
JR putting his piece 6 by 8, and I think that's probably what you're talking about.
So $8 million?
Yeah.
So let's call it $8 million for Dylan Holloway. Who are the other guys that you're saying are going to get paid?
Jimmy Snuggerud.
What do you think he gets?
I mean, you got to think if he has a decent year, you're talking, what, 6 mil? Coming off of it, if he goes out there and put, I don't know if it'll be 8.
Cap's going up. Let's say it's 8.
Yeah, let's make it 8.
Jeez, okay.
Let's just go down. Let's go down this scenario. Joel Hofer.
Joel Hofer is going to be 8.
Okay. So with those 3 guys, we're talking about $24 million in total that you're adding to your books. Then we have not yet accounted for Brady Tkachuk. Let's call that 10. that seem reasonable to you guys? $10 million bucks per year for a long-term contract for him. Might be a little more, but I've also rounded up on some of these other guys as well. So between the three, you're talking about $34 million being added to the books. For 2027, they currently have $49 million on the books. Add in the 37, you're talking about roughly $90 million in terms of your cap. Again, that's rounding up, but somewhere in that range. You've got in this scenario about 15 guys under contract. You need 8 more.
Yeah, you need a goaltender. You're going to need 4 defensemen, and you're going to need
$25 million to work with.
It goes quick, though, man. It goes quick.
Sure, it does. But you're also going to have some young players coming through your system that are going to be costing you like $1 million. Fourth liners are cheap. Most of them are less than $2 million on your roster. You add in like the third pair defensemen that you don't currently have under contract. All of those guys right now for you are around that $1 million range. I mean, yeah, you're supplementing the roster with guys that are cheaper, but you're also giving out big contracts to everybody that is playing up in the lineup. That's how it should be. Most of these contenders across the NHL, that's how their cap sheet looks. They've got stars and scrubs, and I don't mean that to be disparaging toward the lower level players, but I'm talking about in terms of the salary, the way that it works for their rosters. Could it get tight? I guess. But you're also talking about that's when it's at its tightest, because now you've got all of those guys under contract for the long term, and it's going to get, as a percentage of the cap, cheaper as the years go along instead of more expensive. The early portion of this is when it would be toughest. When you're talking about Kyrou and Thomas and Booch, who aren't under contract for that long while you've got all of these guys on the books, and all of these other guys, and Parayko still on the books for only a couple years in this scenario, you can make it work just fine, in my opinion. Yeah. I don't think the cap should be a reason to avoid this.
I think this is get the superstar in there and figure it out.
100%. That's my view on it as well. Do you disagree, Alex?
I think it's seeming a lot easier to you guys than what it is when it gets down to it. But I mean, you're right. Like, you got to go out there and get the guys no matter what, and you're going to have to pay them. It's just you're going to have a lot of guys at that salary cap. You have to bring ownership into it as well. Are they willing to pay to the salary cap as it continues to go up?
And if the answer is no, then you got bigger issues. Coming up next, the Cardinals have figured out their Dustin May problem. Is Kyle Leahy going to be the next guy that they figure out? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here. The Sports Center Update brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. Cardinals back in action tonight. Game 2 of their 4-game set at the Pittsburgh Pirates. 5:40 will be first pitch. Kyle Leahy will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center Update was brought to you by Universal Windows Direct. You'll be saying, I love my windows.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. The Cardinals have figured things out, it seems like, with Dustin May. He has turned it around, had a terrible first couple of starts, said as much in his post-game interview after that second start for the Cardinals. He's like, I don't understand what's going on, but this is unacceptable. And since then, he's been really good. Meanwhile, Kyle Leahy has just kind of been ho-hum so far. And I am curious to see what it looks like tonight against the same Pirates lineup that we saw Dustin May have success against yesterday. His starts so far this year, Alex, he's made 5 of them. 4 have gone for exactly 5 innings. 1 win, only 4 innings. And my biggest issue, my biggest complaint is the walks. He's had 2, 3, 3, 0, and 3 walks in his 5 starts so far this season. That's good, if you want to call it that, for 11 walks in 24 innings. If you're going to be a guy that doesn't strike opposing batters out, and he doesn't do that a whole lot as a starter, you can't give them free bases. Otherwise, you're just putting yourself into a world of hurt where you're getting guys free bases, you're getting that pitch count up, and now he's also somebody that doesn't have a whole lot of swing and miss. So now the hits starts to come after that, and that's where the runs follow. Where are you at with Kyle Leahy right now and the importance of tonight's start as they are getting prepared to insert Hunter Dobbins into this rotation as well?
Before we talked to Derrick, I was thinking that Leahy was pitching for his job. But after talking with Derrick, now it doesn't seem that way if the Cardinals feel it. I'm with you. I think he is a pitch to contact pitcher. I don't think there's swing and miss stuff, but he's not effective with his pitches. He's throwing way too many pitches, and he's not giving you a lot of innings, and he's walking guys. It doesn't make for a recipe for success. And that's kind of why I asked that question to Derrick. And I don't know if I asked it correctly, but like Dustin figured it out. He's a veteran. Leahy still has been trying to figure it out, but I don't know if he ever will. Now, maybe that's too overly aggressive, but if we're talking about a guy who struggled in the minors to figure out the starting pitching side and made his break in Major League Baseball as a bullpen arm, and then now you're trying to work through it again, I think what you see is what you get, and it's a guy that just doesn't hit the strike zone as effectively, and he doesn't have the swing and miss stuff. So it makes for a guy that's mostly a 5-and-dive pitcher.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that they can get this a little bit back on track because the walk shouldn't be that big of an issue for him because he didn't really walk a ton of guys last year out of the bullpen. He was fairly fine at that a season ago. The thing that I have a tough time with is, like, even if you fix this, right, quote unquote, fix this with Kyle Leahy, I don't really know what he is still. You know, I don't know he's going to be, as a starter, a big swing and miss guy. So is he pitch to contact? Is he like best case scenario Andre Palante, guy that struggles to get left-handers out and he's able to lock down righties when he goes up against them? Like, that sounds like a number 4 or 5 starter. So I guess maybe that's what they're searching for. And I think that would be a win, but I don't know how much of a win that is for the long-term success of the Cardinals. So I find it interesting to see what their plans really are with him because we're all in agreement in this room. I think the best plan for him moving forward is probably as a bullpen arm. If they need to start him this year because they need a body in this rotation to start, I'm fine with that, especially since they lost Richard Fitz to injury for the full season. They just need to keep their depth strong. But long term, I find it hard to see them fixing him and even in the long term creating that path for him as a starter.
I'm very curious to see what happens with his four seam. That's been something that's been a real issue for him so far this season. Opposing hitters are batting just 370, a casual 370 against his four seam fastball so far this year. And it does include a lot of slug against his four seam last year. It was a good pitch for him. And he was getting a whiff on like 1 out of every 4 that he threw. This year, it's 1 out of every 10. So it just overall, it has not been as successful of a pitch. And I would guess, this is my guess, a lot of that is because last year he was throwing at 95.5 miles per hour on average, and this year he's throwing at 93 miles per hour on average. When you lose that kind of velo, it loses some of the effectiveness, and in turn, people are hitting the crap out of it. So is that something that's just going to magically get better? Or is this a situation where his stuff does play up when he's throwing it out of the bullpen in shorter bursts? I think that's ultimately what we're going to have to find out with Kyle Leahy this year. And if they want to find out over the long haul, fine by me. I just personally am skeptical that he's going to have the upside that they're looking for. I think his stuff plays better coming out of the pen than it does out of the rotation, even though he does have a lot of pitches that he throws with confidence. I understand the arsenal looks like what you would expect out of a starter, but the stuff, when it actually comes out of his hand, is not playing well enough to be a consistent starter. And I just don't see the value long term in having a number 5 starter like this when you already have Andre Palante and Michael McGreevy and Quinn Matthews coming through your system, and eventually Liam Doyle and Durangelo Sanger. You've got Bryson Mott's down at AAA right now as well. This is just, there are too many pitchers that I believe are or will pass him up in the very near future. So I'm curious to see what it looks like tonight. Got an opportunity to maybe get the things right back on track. He will get the start against the Pittsburgh Pirates. I have not seen an announced starter for Pittsburgh tonight.
Bullpen game.
Is it another one?
I think so.
God, they're going 2 bullpen games?
That or someone's getting called up at the last minute.
Okay. So potential for 2 bullpen games in a row for Pittsburgh. That would certainly be interesting. You do that right before they've got Bubba Chandler going on the mound, and he has not been getting deep into games either for them. He's good. He's a pretty impressive young pitcher, but that would certainly be a choice. If you're going to go back-to-back bullpen games and then throw out your very young starter that hasn't been getting deep into games yet for you.
I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, what could go wrong? Oh, sorry. And they're going to activate, I think, Braxton Ashcraft tonight.
Okay.
He's a starter that was on the bereavement list.
Okay, that makes more sense.
I think I remember that's
we'll
right.
most likely be in that direction.
Dang it.
That is the game
2
for you
bullpen
guys
games in a
tonight.
row
We'll
would
break
be
that thing
wild.
down for you tomorrow. The Rewind is next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That is all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
The 101 ESPN app is super easy to use. It's free to download, and it is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Alex, we will finish the show by where we began. It feels like this Cardinals team just has something unique about it, where they're never out of games. They're fun to watch. They're very young. And, man, last night, I don't know if you felt the same way, you guys, but it took away a lot of the bad taste in my mouth from the weekend, where they lost a bunch of close games. They kind of played similarly to what you saw last night, where you get close, you just couldn't quite break through. And last night they were able to break through. So it was like a palate cleanser. Well, I feel better going into the game today, and I feel like I'm a little more optimistic heading into today than I otherwise would have been.
And it makes sense because it's the first time they've played against another NL Central team. And
That's
so, like,
crazy.
you get your
We're a
first
month into the season.
You get your first division game, and you see the competition, and it's like, man, if you can come from behind against a bullpen that they thought was going to be able to hold them down, which essentially kept them down most of that game. I mean, look, the ability to come away with big games, to pull yourself back into a game, force extras late in baseball games is a trait that a lot of teams need to figure out at some point. And to be able to get that figured out on the ground floor of this rebuild, it's impressive. You're going to have to rely on it for the remainder of this season because of your pitching, but man, they just seem to never waver when it comes to tight situations like last night.
Now, I know we're about to see a team where I'll probably feel this way coming out of the weekend, but one of the things that's impressed me about the Cardinals so far this year is I think the only team that I watched them go up against where I was like, that team's just better than you. It's not close, and you saw it play out that way on the field, was Detroit. Detroit was very clearly better than the Cardinals. But every other series so far this year, I've watched it and I've been like, yeah, it's pretty similar in terms of how this played out on the field, including the weekend where they were swept by the Seattle Mariners. All of those games were extremely tight, though. They were very close up until the very bitter end. And I felt the same way last night against Pittsburgh. These teams are pretty close.
Yeah.
We'll see how that plays out over 162. Somebody will be exposed. And this weekend, I think you'll see that against the Dodgers.
This weekend, don't use that as a lip. I think it's the week following this weekend as well where you'll see it with Milwaukee and San Diego. Because I think those are more in terms of expected to be ahead of you.
I would have thought that with Seattle, too, though.
Yeah. I would have thought Seattle would have exposed them but they weren't playing necessarily their best baseball coming into it, so it kind of makes some sense. The Dodgers are. Like, the Dodgers are playing their best. And I think that's the first series they will be exposed. Because I don't even think they were that necessarily exposed in the Tiger series, in my opinion. The game where they got blown out was a Leahy start. So that's what happened. They got Leahy'd, which could happen again tonight.
He's T-Bone. That's Alex. I'm BK. What do you guys think happens in this one? We'll discuss it tomorrow.
I'm calling a Redbird winner.
Yeah, they're bringing up a guy, so I would say they win it.
I think that the Cardinals will lose this one, get back on track tomorrow. We'll talk about that tomorrow. You guys have the Fast Lane coming up next here on 101 ESPN.